Chapter 971. This young man named Thundercat was quite handsome. He had a pair of peach blossom eyes and a smile. His eyes were filled with warmth. Even his body was slender at first glance. However, if one were to step on the ground, they would be able to see that his body proportions were seriously unbalanced. His upper body was long and his lower body was short. Her entire body was about 1.78 meters, which could be considered tall. However, her upper body, including her head, was about 1.3 meters. Her lower body, from her thighs to her feet, was less than 50 centimeters. Her proportions were really uncoordinated to a considerable extent. Beauties was stopped in her tracks. She walked slowly because she wanted to hook up with the rich guy. Otherwise, even if she disguised herself, a single woman entering the lone bamboo city would be suspicious. Once she made a move, she would be exposed immediately. To be able to enter the city with a big family was definitely the best choice. Of course, she couldn't agree too quickly. She had to be reserved, play hard to get, and play hard to get. So, she looked at him coldly with her clear eyes. She opened her red lips and asked suspiciously, "Thundercat? Are you from the Lei family?" That small voice was cool and pleasant to the ear, like a clear spring in the mountains, tinkling and ringing, making one's bones go limp as soon as one heard it. The Thundercat's bones had already melted. That voice was too pleasant to listen to. Sobbed that he suddenly became spirited and made a pose that he thought was very cool. He smiled and said, "You know about the Lei family. Haha. May I know your name?" "My surname is Su." Swishaoduo said coldly, "Mr. Lei, please. I heard that your name was special, so I wanted to ask you." "Haha. No need." "Why not?" Thundercat's heart was itching. He looked at the beauty in front of him. "Oh, this 1.76 meters tall? She weighs less than 100 pounds. At most, she is no more than 100 pounds. Her chest is about 92 pounds. Waist should be 59 pounds. 60. Hips 93 pounds. The ratio of the upper body to the lower body is about 5:8 in the golden ratio. Maybe even a little more, like 8:5. This body is really slurp." The Thundercat boasted that he had seen countless women. With just a glance, he could remember the basic number of women in his mind, and the error would not be more than 3 millimeters. But after so many years, this was the first time he had seen a woman with such a perfect figure. She was so devastatingly beautiful that she could cause the downfall of a country. Therefore, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, "Miss Su, my name." "Haha, my name actually has a very interesting story." Swishaoduo ignored him completely. She had really learned from Zhuoxianyan's cold aura. She drifted away with the wind. Her long hair fluttered, her clothes fluttered, her fragrance fluttered, and her ribbons fluttered. Of course, the Thundercat was followed by Yufeng. They walked side by side. Looking at the beautiful side profile of the beauty, he could only feel his heart thumping wildly. "I'm in love. I'm really in love." Back then, my mother loved to raise animals. My family used to raise a few pandas, but one of them was very weak. Compared to other pandas, its legs were shorter, as if it did not have any legs at all. My mother loved it very much. She always said, "Panda, if you don't have legs, won't you become a cat?" The corner of Zhuoxianyan's mouth twitched, as if she wanted to laugh, but she held it back. Then, she continued to move forward with the wind. The Thundercat saw the beauty's reaction, and he was very happy. So he continued to talk. "I was born that year. When I was born, my father said, 'Why are the children's legs so short?' But my mother liked it very much. Among all my siblings, she liked me the most. It was probably because of my short legs. She even gave me the name Thundercat." The Thundercat laughed. "My mother hoped that I could live a carefree life like a panda, so she named me Thundercat." Yes, that's it. Ha ha ha. This is the origin of my name. It's not bad. It's very popular. Originally, this name had brought me a lot of troubles, and I didn't like it when I was young. But as I grew up, I understood my mother's painstaking efforts. So I liked it more and more. My mother gave me the nickname Mighty Cat, and I did live up to this name. I'm really big everywhere. The kind of big that makes others envious. The Thunder Cat looked like a filial son. However, the Lei family guards who were following behind him almost vomited out blood. Little cat. Don't brag. Who doesn't know that the name you dislike the most is your own name? Last month, you were beaten up because you wanted to change your name. For so many years, if anyone dared to mention the name Thunder Cat in front of you, it would be the prelude to your anger. No, this name had caused a lot of people's lives, so the word punching was not enough to describe it. Now, you actually said that you like your own name the most just because you want to pick up girls. We really want to ask, doesn't your conscience hurt when you talk like this? Do you even believe in your own long-winded and irrefutable arguments? You actually called yourself Mighty Cat, ... But the beauty in front of him obviously agreed with the Thunder Cat's statement. Although she was still cold, she nodded for the first time and said, Yes, yes. You are so filial to your parents. I guess your mother must be very pleased with your filial piety. The Thunder Cat blinked his eyes. Suddenly his eyes turned red. He sighed and tried to hold back his tears. He took a deep breath and said in a low voice, My mother, I haven't seen her for 3 years. Beautyzwa was surprised. I'm sorry, I didn't know she had. Just when Zwishaodua was about to say the word passed away. She has been in seclusion for a long time. The Thunder Cat blinked his eyes hard. Tears almost came out of his eyes. I haven't enjoyed a mother's love. For 3 years. Beautyzwa's expression immediately turned speechless, and she rolled her eyes coquettishly. Fuck, I thought your mother ... but she was in seclusion. Young Master Lei, don't make such jokes to your elders. Beautyzwa scolded. Well, Beautyzwa was greedy, stingy and timid, but she would not forget her morals for profit. She especially valued filial piety. Any disobedient and unfilial behavior would not work for her. Of course, except for foolish filial piety and blind obedience. Yes, yes, you are right. The Thunder Cat nodded like a chicken pecking rice. I will listen to you from now on. I will listen to you forever. Beautyzwa, who obviously didn't want to offend someone, continued to ride the wind and even sped up. Miss, where are you going? The Thunder Cat followed suit and asked eagerly. No answer. She continued to fly forward coldly and expressionlessly. Her speed was even faster. Miss Sue, why are you standing on the sidewalk? Although you're skilled and brave, the streets of Jianghu aren't peaceful. Now, a great devil has appeared in our wizard alliance. He's ruthless, kills people like flies, commits all sorts of crimes, and is insane. No answer. She continued to be cold and aloof. The big devil is called Zwishaodua. He is a man of astral souls. The Thunder Cat followed behind the beauty and kept talking, introducing, describing, and adding more adjectives. He added more and more adjectives to Zwishaodua. Most importantly, he repeatedly said that this guy was a super pervert, that he would not be able to walk away when he saw a beautiful woman. He would definitely do that and that and that. He was a perverted, disgusting thing. Although Beautyzwa continued to move forward coldly, she finally slowed down a little. Because of the anger in her heart, she almost couldn't help but slap this guy into meat paste. This bastard. How dare he slander me like this? Damn you. How could he spout such nonsense? Yet, he said it in such a serious manner, as if it was true. He was vicious and merciless. It was fine if he killed and robbed, but he wasn't afraid of others talking about it. It was all legitimate operations, legitimate self-defense, okay? But since when can I walk away when I see a beautiful woman? Why do I have to do that and that? I am still a real man, okay? Once I'm out of danger, I'll definitely skin you alive and grind your bones to dust, you bastard. At this time, the lone bamboo city was in sight. The Thunder Cat saw that Beautyzwa was moving slower and slower. He was overjoyed and thought that the beauty was scared. Wasn't this a great opportunity for him to please her? Miss Sue, look, I have so many guards with me. Every one of them is an expert, hee. The best of the best. No matter how arrogant Zwishaodua is, he won't dare to be presumptuous in front of me. In front of me, he is just a little brother. Miss Sue, can you tell me where you are going? I can escort you there. The Thunder Cat then began to boast. To be honest, Miss Sue, the Lei family is quite powerful in the Umno alliance. Beautyzwa nodded slightly. The shocking Thunder family of the 12 ancient families. No matter how ignorant I am, I have heard of it. I am here to catch Swishaoduo and bring him to justice. The Thunder Cat first pretended to be cool with an indifferent expression, indicating that catching Swishaoduo was a piece of cake. Then he said flatteringly, "So, you are free to do whatever you want. Miss Su, where are you going? I can send you there." This is not a good idea. Beauty Zwa hesitated. Her bright eyes flickered. Master Lei has a heavy responsibility on his shoulders. I am a burden. I am afraid that I will delay his work. It won't delay. You are so smart and pure. How can it delay you? The Thunder Cat patted his chest loudly. Don't worry, just leave everything to me. I, the Thunder Cat, am definitely worth anything. Including your lifelong commitment. The Thunder Cat added in his heart. I am not an ungrateful person. I thank you for your kindness. But I really don't know how to repay you. Beauty Zwa's face finally softened. The Thunder Cat was overjoyed. She called herself his little sister. Good. Cough. Chapter 972. What else do you need? The Thunder Cat laughed heartily and said, I feel like old friends with you at first sight. This is the fate between people, a fate bestowed by the heavens. Haha. It is my honor that you are willing to travel with me. Thank you, Mr. Lei. Stop calling me Mr. Lei. Just call me Almighty Cat. Almighty Cat, haha, this name sounds familiar to me. The Thunder Cat smiled warmly and winked at her. The great beauty suddenly burst out laughing. Her laughter was like 100 flowers blooming, magnificent and boundless. Her cherry lips opened slightly and she said in a crisp voice, Almighty Cat. Almighty Cat. The guards of the Lei family looked up at the sky. The speechlessness in their hearts was enough to fill the whole Umno alliance. They felt like they were cursing in their hearts. In the blink of an eye, they had lost count of how many times they had cursed. Mr. Lei, who would dare to call you Almighty Cat? If they did, it would be a light punishment for them to exterminate their entire family. Now, at this moment, at this place, you actually agreed so easily? Can you be any more despicable? According to the information we have, the target of this trip, Swishaoduo, is known as the Despicable King. His despicable behavior has no bottom line. Everyone knows that. But compared to his deeds, what you have done today is enough to replace him and become the new Despicable King. On the other side, the shameless conversation was still going on. May I know Miss Su's name? I won't tell you. How can a girl's name be told to others? I feel like old friends with Miss Su at first sight. Thundercat is here. May I know your name? I told you I can't tell you. Almighty Cat is tearfully asking for Miss Su's name. My name is Muo. Mo? What do you mean by Muo? Isn't that so? Why do you think she doesn't want to say her name? Isn't it because the name is too tacky? Once people hear it. Anyway, this name isn't good. But this is the name my mother gave me. What can I do? This is the old lady's bad taste. What can I do? It's pretty good. Lots of wealth, lots of beauty, lots of blessings, lots of water. Anyway, it's not good. Almighty Cat thinks this name is pretty good. Many. Don't shout. Many. This is clearly a good name. A very, very good name. Almighty Cat thinks it's great. I'm angry. Okay, I was wrong. I was wrong. I can cry like a cat and admit my mistakes. Sister Duo, can you forgive me? You're not allowed to call me Sister Duo. Then what should I call you? Whatever. I'm most afraid of being casual. How much do I call you girly? Sister Duo. Sister Duo. Along the way, they chatted and laughed, and the atmosphere gradually thawed. By the time they entered Lone Bamboo City, the guards of the Lei family had already escorted Zuo safely into Lone Bamboo City, as if they were the stars surrounding the moon, like the stars surrounding the moon. This part of the journey was really easy and relaxing. Lord Demon, who was watching from above, was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Damn, how could this be? He is indeed Zuo Changzhang's son. He is full of schemes and tricks. He is indeed my daughter's son. He is so smart and resourceful. He is the best of his generation. The old man sighed in amazement as he quietly followed him. This kid must be up to something by spending so much effort to enter Lone Bamboo City, that the Thundercat's heart almost melted when he saw that he could travel with the beauty. He waved his hand and booked the best suite on the top floor of the most luxurious Lone Bamboo Hotel. Countless lay family guards admired the ninth young master's flirting skills from the bottom of their hearts. He did not care about his image, did not care about acting cool, and used his stupidity to act cute. What a good move! So skillful, so common, so tried and tested. Our ninth young master was able to win over such a cold beauty with just a few words. Now it was obvious that they were going to stick together like glue. Otherwise, he would not be called the 10,000 killer. He is indeed worthy of our admiration. What a powerful man. His skills are worthy of admiration, but difficult to imitate. We are not that cheap. But a few people had already started to bet. Guess how long it will take for our ninth young master to hit a home run? I bet 3 days. What about you? I don't want to bet anymore. Another person looked sad. Such a beauty. She is so beautiful. Sigh. I can't bear to think about it. I don't want to bet anymore. Damn. We have someone who cares about women. I didn't expect that. The entire Lone Bamboo City, except for the Lei family, was filled with tension. The aura of the Tao integration stage flying in the sky almost crushed the entire Lone Bamboo City, a city with more than 5 million people. The natives of Lone Bamboo City were all trembling in fear. The people who were originally in charge of patrolling the city's security were all replaced. Now, the weakest patrolling on the streets was at the cloud transformation stage. In the past, a cloud transformation stage expert was enough to dominate an area. But now that they were all gone, when it came to soul transformation stage experts, they were already gone. Cloud transformation stage experts were no better than dogs. God reigning stage experts were everywhere. Mystic returning stage experts were nothing. Only Tao integration stage experts could barely be considered experts. Countless experts were still rushing over from all directions, like hundreds of rivers converging into the sea. Outside Lone Bamboo City, there was no sound. There was an aura of life everywhere. Such a lineup proved with their lives that Swishaoduo had not left. After Swishaoduo came down from Lone Bamboo Mountain, he entered Lone Bamboo City directly. Until now he was still in the city. As long as he was in the city, there was a way to trap him and kill him, especially the descendants of the major clans. Everyone knew that this was an opportunity. At the same time, it was also the most dangerous opportunity, because experts above the sky realm were not allowed to make a move. Then the highest level was at the mystic returning stage. In other words, if a mystic returning stage expert killed Swishaoduo, the Flood Witch and all the higher-ups of the astral souls could only watch. They could not do anything. Even if they wanted to take revenge, they could only find another opportunity on the battlefield, because what the other party did was in accordance with the rules. But now, the most obvious thing was, even the strongest mystic returning stage expert in the Umno Alliance was no match for Swishaoduo. This was a difficult problem. It was almost unsolvable. But for the young masters, this was not a problem at all. If one mystic returning stage expert could not do it, how about 10? How about 100? How about 1,000? How about 10,000? 100,000 would also be very kawaii. What we have is people, and we have resources. It would be worth it even if you were killed. Countless battle formations had already been rehearsed. They were just waiting for the moment when the target appeared and could be put to use. As long as Swishaoduo appeared, this group of people would rush forward and not give him a chance to escape. They would not stop until he was dead. Now, even a few families in the Lone Bamboo Hotel had started a meeting. Everyone come to the biggest meeting room. Let's have a meeting. When the time comes, let's not rush together. If we kill Swishaoduo, who will it belong to? If we don't make this clear in advance, if we fight, it will be a joke. That's true. This time, there were many people from the 12 clans. A total of 7 clans came. Other than the Hong, Lai, Wu, Feng and Bing clans, the rest were all here. Especially the Golden Scale Witches Sha clan. There were many extra people this time. Let's have a meeting. Where are the Lei clan people? Where did the Lei clan people go? Who came this time? I heard it's the Thunder Cat. That pervert. Where is he? He hit on a girl when he just arrived. I saw him go up. Fuck. A few people scolded in unison. How can he still be in the mood to hit on girls? Hurry up and drag him down for a meeting. No matter how good he is at hitting on girls, he can't make Swishaoduo disappear. Hurry up and come down. The Thundercat was lying in Beauty Swishaoduo's room. Miss Sue, your hand doesn't look like a swordsman's. There are no traces at all. The so-called slender hand is just like this. As he said, he touched her hand. Beauty Swishaoduo retracted her hand and snorted. Do I need any traces to practice swordsmanship? Hee. The Thundercat smelled the fragrance of the orchid and musk and said, Miss Sue, your hand is really beautiful. Turn it over, and let me see your palm print. Let me tell you, I know how to read palms. I have done a lot of research in this area. I can read anyone's marriage in marriage. Everyone says that I am very good at reading people's faces. I can read people's faces very accurately. People say that I can read people's faces very accurately. No need. I don't really believe in that. Oh, I have nothing to do anyway. It's just for fun. The Thundercat was trying to flatter her. But Beauty Swishaoduo was trying her best to reject his flattery. Beauty Swishaoduo was trying her best to suppress her urge to tell the fortune of the Thundercat and his subordinates. Beauty Swishaoduo was trying her best to suppress her urge. Thundercat. An earth-shattering roar came from outside. The roar was full of exasperation. Come to the meeting. The meeting room on the third floor. The Thundercat's face darkened when he heard the sudden roar. He shouted angrily. What kind of shitty hotel is this? Why is the soundproofing so bad? He picked up the phone and made a call. What meeting? I have something important to deal with. Let's have a meeting to discuss how to deal with Swishaoduo. A strong voice came from the phone. We're waiting for you. Hurry up and come here. What's there to discuss about Swishaoduo? It's not as important as my business. The Thundercat was not willing to go down. He clearly felt that he was about to succeed, especially when he mentioned palmistry just now. Looking at the beautiful woman's expression, it was obvious that she was very interested in fortune-telling. Chapter 973. The Thundercat was very reluctant. He believed that if he had a little more time, he would be able to hit a safe home run. 1 hour. No, half an hour would be enough. Just now, Beauty Sue's heart was fluttering, and her eyebrows were flying. Now was the perfect time to take advantage of the situation and take her down in one fell swoop. Every minute of the night was worth 1,000 gold, and it was the best time to make love. If he went down now, this opportunity to strike while the iron was hot would be gone in the blink of an eye. He really didn't know when the next time would be. Beauty Swishaoduo looked over with her beautiful eyes curiously and said very considerately, How to deal with Swishaoduo? That peerless master? This is a serious matter. Young Master Lei, don't delay. Go ahead. The Thundercat became more and more depressed and complained. What peerless master? It's just a piece of shit, Swishaoduo. And you make it sound like a big deal. What a bummer. What? Beauty Swishaoduo said in surprise. But young Master Lei, didn't you just say that Swishaoduo is very powerful, has killed countless people, and his cultivation is even more profound? He's also a peerless master, and he's very lecherous, and asked me to be careful? Is this person not to be feared? What you said just now, were you just coaxing me? The Thundercat's face changed. No, I made a mistake just now. Although Swishaoduo is not a peerless expert, he is still a peerless, ruthless man. He is a genius and can easily kill high-level practitioners. Moreover, he is also a lecherous man and will commit all kinds of evil deeds. He is extremely lecherous. My partner asked me to have a meeting to end this man as soon as possible. I will go down to the meeting first. Miss Sue, you can have a good rest here. You will be safe here. I will come back soon. When I come back, I will read your palm. I'll be back soon. Swishaoduo blinked and said, Okay, I'll wait for you. Actually, I also like to read fortunes. He cursed in his heart. What do you mean by piece of shit, Swishaoduo? How am I lecherous and lecherous? This bastard is simply spouting nonsense. He deserves to die. When you come back, I will read your fortune and send you back to your hometown. The upper echelons of the young masters gathered together for a meeting. The bodyguards they brought other than their personal bodyguards, all dispersed. This time, the meeting didn't come back as soon as the Thunder Cat said. Instead, it lasted for 2 hours. As for the arrangements, formations, and tactics of the various clans, they all communicated with each other. As a result, conflicts between the various clans were unavoidable. Although Swaxiaoduo had not appeared yet, everyone knew that Swaxiaoduo was in Lone Bamboo City. With so many experts from the various clans, it would not be difficult for them to kill Swaxiaoduo here. No matter how much of a genius Swaxiaoduo was, there was a limit to human strength. In the end, he would not be able to escape death. Even a ferocious tiger would be afraid of a pack of wolves. Moreover, not only was Swaxiaoduo not a ferocious tiger, but they were also not comparable to a pack of wolves. It would be more appropriate to say that it was a group of tigers devouring sheep. Then came the most direct question. There was only one Swaxiaoduo. Because of him, there was only one reward and reputation. Who would it be for? Each and every one of the young masters of the great clans had come from afar with a purpose. It was obvious that each of their clan's intentions were straightforward and clear. They were here to kill Swaxiaoduo and gild their names. Whoever could kill Swaxiaoduo would be the most outstanding person among the younger generation of the Wizard Alliance. Needless to say, everyone clearly understood this in their hearts. Not convinced. Why should they not be convinced? Why aren't you the one who killed Swaxiaoduo? The first discussion about who should go first caused a dispute. You go first. Then after you go first, will I still have a share? Why shouldn't I go first? How am I worse than you? No, absolutely not. How can there be an order? Once the topic was pointed out, the scene fell into chaos. Amongst the people present, which one of them wasn't an arrogant person that looked down upon everyone else? How could they be willing to fall behind? It looked like a huge farce was about to unfold. Knock, knock, knock. Sha Hun and Hai Hunshan from the West Sea Grand, which clan on the other side, knocked on the table at the same time. They all had a headache. Be quiet for a while. Don't talk. The Sand Soul knocked on the table so hard that it almost broke the table. But it didn't work at all. You are powerful in the Sha clan. You have the right to speak in the Sha clan. That's your home. No matter how powerful you are in your home, you can't control me. Who do you think you are? Sha Hun had no choice but to stand up and say, everyone, I, Sha Hun, have something to say. Maybe it can solve the current situation. If you think it's unreasonable, it won't be too late to do it. He said this 3 times in a row, and then gradually quieted down. The 16 young masters of the 7 families all tilted their heads and looked at Sand Soul with discontent on their faces. The scene was chaotic just now, but everyone knew that if they continued to argue like this, it would be difficult to get a result. Since Sha Hun proposed a feasible plan, they were willing to listen. After all, there were 16 of them, plus the 3 from the Sha clan. There were 19 people in total. It was really a gathering of heroes. The leaders of the younger generation of the Umno Alliance had gathered. Sha Hun took a deep breath, squinted his eyes and said with a smile, what I'm going to say may not be pleasant to hear. Brothers, please bear with me. It's better to say the ugly words first. It's better than hurting the harmony within the Umno Alliance when the time comes. Hai Hunshan from the West Sea Grand, which clan was a big and burly man. He had a bulbous nose, a toad mouth, triangular eyes and broom-like eyebrows. He was abnormally tall and sturdy. He sat there like a huge toad and said in a rough voice, say it. Sha Hun nodded and said, I have to say these ugly words. As the younger generation, although we are not young, compared to Swaxiaoduo, we are obviously not on the same level. It was indeed ugly words. They were really unpleasant to hear. Many young masters snorted from their nostrils, and their faces changed color. There were even a few people who glared at Sha Hun. I know that you don't like to hear it. Most of us here have already reached the returning mysterious realm. There are even a few people who have suppressed the agitation of their vital essence several times after reaching the peak of the returning mysterious realm. They can break through to the sky realm at any time. But I still want to remind everyone here, Swaxiaoduo's current cultivation base, although he has just broken through to the royal god realm not long ago, his battle strength, according to the latest information collected from the recent battles, can be confirmed that his battle strength is far beyond the peak of the returning mysterious realm. The peak of the returning mysterious realm here includes those who have suppressed the agitation of their vital essence many times. To be fair, even if we send out ordinary Sky Realm cultivators, it would be difficult to be Zhuo Xiaoduo's opponent. Sha Han said word by word in an orderly manner. Every word was sonorous and meaningful. And the favor order made by the Flood Ancestor basically restricts us from sending out Sky Realm cultivators and above to help in this battle, further making Zhuo Xiaoduo invincible at this stage. It is said that Lei Jiuxiao of the Lei family once met Zhuo Xiaoduo. He immediately sent out the peak of the returning mysterious realm to restrain him with his life, as well as 50 death warriors to self-destruct, but it was still futile. Sha Han's voice was very heavy. Combining all the information and reality above, this Zhuo Xiaoduo's battle strength has probably reached the level of our parents' generation, or even our ancestors' generation. If we don't have a proper plan and act rashly, not only will it be futile, but it will also consume the strength in our hands and die in vain. The young masters shook their heads and tongues, but they were speechless for a long time. Obviously, they knew that Sha Han was telling the truth and had nothing to say. No matter how unwilling they were to admit it, and how it hurt their pride, they had to admit that Zhuo Xiaoduo's current strength had indeed reached this level. So what we need to consider the most now is how to kill Zhuo Xiaoduo. The so-called merit is just a trivial matter, Sha Han said soberly. As long as we get rid of this enemy with terrifying potential, the higher-ups will definitely reward us handsomely. If we work together, we might get a small share of the profits. But if we continue to argue like this, there is only one possibility, and that is that Zhuo Xiaoduo will break through our defense line one by one, and then leave calmly. I even dare to say that even if any of the clans were to use all their strength below the Sky Realm, it would still not be enough to stop Zhuo Xiaoduo. They might even be killed by Zhuo Xiaoduo one by one, to the point where every clan will be wiped out. This is definitely not an alarmist talk. This is the current situation. Every clan has to face the truth. Our clans are indeed very powerful, but in the face of the current predicament, we are helpless and powerless. This is the reality, because we can't do things in the name of Lord Flood. None of us can bear that kind of responsibility. If everyone is willing to work together to deal with Zhuo Xiaoduo, the Sha clan is willing to do our best to participate in this grand undertaking. But if everyone still wants to fight for themselves and monopolize the profits, then Sha Han squinted his eyes and smiled. We, the Sha clan, will leave this place immediately, because there is no other meaning in staying here, except for the danger of losing our lives. Hai Hushan rolled his triangular eyes and pouted his toad-like mouth. His slender tongue licked the tip of his nose. And then he said seriously, "Then tell me, what should we do? How should we work together?" The others also looked at Sha Han thoughtfully, waiting for him to continue. It had to be said that Sha Han's mind was still very clear. Sha Han said, "The most important thing now is to make sure that all the clans work together and eliminate the possibility of our own clans dragging our own clans down. As for the way to stop Zhuo Xiaoduo, it's easy to talk about. First, cooperate with the burning body order. Second, seal the soul. Third, seal the space. Fourth, crush the strength. Fifth, completely cut off Zhuo Xiaoduo's escape route." The direction that I wrote before was a little wrong. It caused a lot of problems here. The manuscript is ruined. Originally, I wanted to dress as a woman and trick him directly, but that would be too insulting to my intelligence. So I rewrote this paragraph. Sigh. Chapter 974. Sha Han spoke very slowly. As he spoke, he quickly organized all the information in his mind. His voice was clear as he said, "From the information sent by Lei Jiuxiao, as well as the information from these few snipes, we can confirm that Zhuo Xiaoduo has a spatial equipment in his hands. It is very likely to be the hidden dragon martial arts master Yi Chongqing's Mia tower. So when our people self-destruct, he will be fine as long as he hides in the tower. This is what I mentioned before. Zhuo Xiaoduo's last step, where his escape route lies. How can we be sure that when the people with the incineration order self-destruct, Swordsmanship will not be able to escape? This is the most important factor. If we can't cut off his escape route, no matter how many incineration orders we have, we will only let Swordsmanship watch the fireworks in vain. His sacrifice will be in vain. It will be meaningless. He said with a heavy tone. Everyone has their own treasures. I have no intention to elaborate on this. Everyone knows what they are doing. But if you are unwilling to take it out, or if some people take it out, and some don't want to take it out, it may cause all our efforts to be in vain. If Swordsmanship escapes, countless people will be implicated and sacrificed in vain. Everyone is the leader of the younger generation. It is impossible that you do not understand this principle. Sha Han said, I will say this much. If there is anything that I have not said, or if it is unpleasant, please forgive me. He bowed and sat down. Although they sat down, everyone calmed down. The whole place was silent for a long time. These people were the leaders of the younger generation of the big families. Naturally, none of them were ordinary people. They had their own strengths and weaknesses. Although all of them were either lecherous, gambling-loving, boorish, stingy, or temperamental in appearance, none of them were easy to get along with. If they underestimated any one of them, because of their external performance, they would definitely suffer a great loss. Therefore, although everyone knew that Sha Han wanted to use the treasures of their families, they did not object at first. Instead, they were deep in thought. For example, Hai Han Shan, who was ugly and had dark skin, was wearing a snow-white robe. He looked extremely rough, but in fact he was a very meticulous person. At the same time, his own strength was also in the top 3 among all the people who came here. Everyone knew the name Toad King, Hai Han Shan. He was fierce, vicious, and cruel. However, his ugly appearance could make people instinctively afraid. Perhaps because he was ugly, people did not want to take a second look at him and let their guard down. Everyone present was well aware of what was going on. Hai Han Shan stood up. With a slurp, his long tongue licked the tip of his nose. He said seriously, Sha Han is right. This matter is not something that can be fought for. What we are doing now is to eliminate a great enemy for the future of our alliance. Everyone nodded slowly. This was a good statement. This general direction and premise were real and true. With Swordsmanship's current level of cultivation, his true combat strength, and the time he had spent cultivating was not enough to describe him as a heaven-defying monster. If he was allowed to grow, wouldn't he become another Sky Inspector throne? The astral souls had painstakingly made the Sky Inspector throne appear out of nowhere. This was a reversal of the situation where they were suppressed by the Alliance and the Tao League. There were already too many of such people. The other one had to be nipped in the bud. If he was allowed to grow, it would not be a question of whether he was easy to kill. Instead, it would be impossible to kill him. Let me add a plan to deal with Swordsmanship. I have with me a piece of the immortal binding lock that was broken when Lord Zuwu battled with a mighty figure. When the time is right, I will take it out and use it. Hai Han Shan frowned and said, although my immortal binding lock is severely damaged, and I only have one piece, it can still bind even a Tao integration stage expert if he is caught off guard. Hai Han Shan was the first to state his position. Sha Han said, this time, I have with me the soul-wounding arrow of the Sha family. Unfortunately, the 7 emotions bow that goes with it has been lost for a long time. Now it can only be used as a hidden weapon. As long as the soul-wounding arrow can hit Swordsmanship, it can immediately cause serious damage to his soul and instantly remove the connection with the treasure that is connected to his soul. However, this soul-wounding arrow is incomplete, so I cannot be 100% sure that it will work. There must be a backup plan. In case it does not work, I must use a treasure that can keep up. Kami no Su of the Shen family, the Zhumang Grand Shaman's family, said lightly, I also have the space-shaking gong. Once it rings, it will be enough to shock Swordsmanship for a few breaths and create an opening. The Thundercat coughed and said, I have the ecstasy fog. Hearing this, the others all scolded. Thundercat, what is the use of your aphrodisiac? Hai Han Shan looked at the Thundercat with his bright eyes and said in a deep voice, Thundercat, if I remember correctly, The thunder mirror of the Lei family is a destructive magic weapon that can cause thousands of thunderbolts to roar. It is also a treasure that the core disciples of the Lei family must carry with them when they go out for training. This time, you came here with a purpose. Don't tell me you did not bring this treasure with you? The Thunder Cat said with a painful face. That thing has been worn out for a long time and cannot be used again. It needs to be stored in the Thunder Prison for 100 years before it can be used 3 times. Cut the crap and stop pretending. The others looked at him with disdain. We all know each other. Even if you pretend to be lecherous and stingy, do you think we will believe you? The Thunder Cat's face twisted. He really wanted to say, I am not pretending this time. But he had to say, okay, I promise to use the Thunder Mirror once to complete this task. Then, everyone's eyes turned to Yenziki from the Burning Candle Witch's family. Yenziki sighed and said, I will adjust the yin-yang mirror at the last moment and separate Wuxia from his annihilation. Small tower. The annihilation tower was a taboo topic now. If there was no one else, and it was only the family members who talked about it, they could talk about it without any scruples. But with so many descendants of the great wizards here, the words annihilation tower were taboo words that could not be spoken easily. Although no one from the great wizard Dan Kong's D family came, who could guarantee that it would not be spread to other people's ears? Hai Hunshan said. Since that is the case, the plan is set. As long as Wuxia appears, we will first send people to intercept him and try to determine his location as soon as possible and limit him to a certain range. Then Kami no Su will activate the sky-shaking gong and break the space in an indiscriminate attack mode. Then he will control Wuxia's movements and lock Wuxia in this area. Then Shahan will use the soul-hurting arrow. It must hit the target. Then the Thunder Cat will attack and suppress him with the range of the Thunder Mirror. My immortal tying lock will then bind and imprison him. The yin-yang mirror will completely isolate him, and the burning token will explode immediately. Hai Hunshan said. The immortal tying lock, sky thunder mirror, yin-yang mirror, and soul-hurting arrow can all be controlled remotely and improvised. But this sky-shaking gong. Wuxia, are you sure you can protect yourself? If you can't succeed in the first step and pin down Wuxia, all the subsequent steps will not be valid. Kami no Su's handsome face was a little dull. She said, I can trigger the spiritual sense of the elders. There is no need to worry. Hai Hunshan said. To be safe, you wear my sea spirit shirt. It will help you withstand a fatal blow. Kami no Su was moved. She said, Thank you, Brother Hai. Hai Hunshan's sea spirit shirt sounded exactly the same, but the sea spirit shirt was a treasure left by the West Sea Shaman. It was a defensive treasure refined from the water of the sea. The West Sea Shaman spent 100 years and only managed to refine 3 of them. Hai Hunshan was actually willing to lend such a treasure. It was really a big deal. People couldn't help but be moved. Needless to say, this series of arrangements was both offensive and defensive, and it was appropriate to advance and retreat. The layers of arrangements were watertight and vicious to the extreme. Everyone discussed once more, and they seriously considered where there were still loopholes that needed to be perfected. After a long time, they finally decided. Things were settled like this. After constructing such a meticulous arrangement, the young masters even had a feeling. Even if they were targeting a Heavenly King stage powerhouse, they would still fall into our trap. It should be known that the construction of this sure-kill trap could be said to be an all-round 3-dimensional attack. Moreover, the main targets of the attack were all dreamlike items, legendary treasures. If one had to say that there was something lacking, it would probably be that the attacking power of these people was relatively limited. Even though they could use many magic treasures to plot against the Heavenly King stage powerhouses, they were still unable to break through the most basic physical defense of the opponent. This was the absolute difference between the ranks, not the fault of the battle. But if the target was changed to Wuxia, what was Emir's Wuxia worth? It was not a problem. After the meeting, the Thunder Cat could not wait to go upstairs and knock on the door. Miss Su, it's me, the mighty cat. In a moment the door opened. Beautieswa flipped her long hair and said with a smile, Young Master Lei, Why did the meeting take so long? Didn't you say you would be back soon? Who said so? It's so annoying, the Thunder Cat said as he tried to squeeze into the door. Young Master Lei, please behave yourself. Men and women should not touch each other. It is inconvenient for a man and a woman to be alone. It is already so late. Let's wait for another day. The beauty was very reserved. I have been annoyed by those people for too long. And I want to talk to Miss Toto to make myself feel better. I have brought some good tea with me this time. So let's have some tea. The Thunder Cat said. I promise I won't do anything. Beauties rolled her eyes and stepped aside helplessly. She walked to the sofa and sat down. She said in a seemingly unintentional tone. This meeting must have been effective. After such a long time, if it is still successful. Alas, they are a group of second-generation young masters. None of them are good. It could have been done with a few words, but it was delayed until now. They wasted a lot of good time. The Thunder Cat sat on the sofa opposite her and crossed his legs. He belittled all the others with one sentence. Miss Sue, if you see these people, you must be careful. None of them are kind, especially those who are a little bit ugly. Haven't you heard that Mr. Bai is the worst? Among these people, there were quite a few who were very handsome. She had to be prepared in advance and label them as bad people first. Oh, thank you for your advice. There are so many young masters gathered here. Swaxiaodua will not be able to escape. I wonder which young master will capture him in the end. Beauties smiled sweetly. Anyway, I think I will be safe for the rest of my journey, right? With me here, who dares to touch you? Just a mere Swaxiaodua is nothing. As long as he dares to show up, he will definitely die. The Thunder Cat's face was filled with a calm smile, as if everything was under his control. You are so sure? Didn't young master say that Swaxiaodua was so powerful and so amazing? Beauties exclaimed. That was then and this is now. What do you mean? We have discussed a foolproof plan. Ha ha ha. Chapter 975. A foolproof plan? Against Swaxiaodua? That's great. Beauties was relieved and said, finally there's good news. These days Swaxiaodua really scared me. The Thunder Cat laughed and said, I'm here, what are you afraid of? Ha ha ha. He looked like a hero. Yes. Almighty Cat is really capable. Beauties smiled and praised him. Ha ha ha. The Almighty Cat felt lighter and said, I'm known as the Almighty Cat. Of course I'm capable. Ha ha ha. So, what's the foolproof plan? Beauties' eyes were full of curiosity. She smiled and said, You've aroused my curiosity but you stopped abruptly. Do you want me to ask you more? Beauties' was getting more and more into character. Every frown and smile of hers was so charming that it tugged at people's heartstrings. The Thunder Cat was fascinated by her beauty. He squinted his eyes and laughed. There's no need for you to ask. I'm here for you. I'll tell you about our research. No need. It's confidential. If it's leaked out, you might tell me that you've told me. Swaxiaodua was very considerate and said, Even if I have a clear conscience, your reputation will be tarnished. Tarnish what? The Thunder Cat smiled faintly and said, Give them the guts. But this time, I did put in a lot of effort into the plan. I arranged many layers of the plan in great detail, hoping that it would succeed in one strike. In order to be absolutely safe, under my suggestion, the aristocratic families have mobilized a total of 5 great spiritual treasures. The Thunder Cat first explained the magical features of each treasure in detail, which made Beauties gasp in amazement. Her eyes were shining brightly. They are all good stuff. I'm so tempted. The Thunder Cat laughed and said, We have plenty of such good stuff. Really? Beauties' eyes were like searchlights, full of endless greed that he hurriedly lowered his head to hide his desire. The Thunder Cat continued, This lineup is really luxurious. Let alone Swaxiaodua. Even if the King of Zwolu from the Astral Souls were here, he would still be trapped for 100 seconds. Hearing this, Swaxiaodua could not stop laughing. She laughed so hard that her body trembled. She covered her mouth with one hand and said, Brilliant plan, brilliant plan. With such a tight arrangement, even if that Swaxiaodua has the ability to reach the heavens, he will still be defeated. Although he was joking, he sucked in a breath of cold air in his heart. who said that the people of the UMNO alliance only have muscles for brains. This plan was so detailed that as long as he dared to appear, he would definitely die. Yes, he would definitely die. If Swishaoduo didn't know what was going on, he would definitely die if he faced it head-on. There would definitely be no other outcome. He wouldn't even have the chance to be trapped in the city and wait for rescue. After showing off for a while, the Thunder Cat felt that he had shown off enough. He gradually became restless. Previously, he had not hesitated to reveal such secrets and implicated himself in all the plans and arrangements. It was to show that his family background, strength, and wisdom were all superior to others. He was like a crane in a flock of chickens, far superior to his peers. He was the best choice for a girl. Marrying me is definitely the best choice. Such a family background, such ability, such a genius. What are you still hesitating for? But Beauty's Will was obviously not moved. This made the Thunder Cat even more excited. She was indeed a lady from a famous family. She could still be so reserved in front of a handsome and peerless genius like me. This Sky Thunder Mirror. Swishaoduo coughed and said, "Is it beautiful?" The Thunder Cat laughed and said, "It's ugly. How can it be beautiful when used in battle?" Swishaoduo made it very clear. But the Thunder Cat's answer made Swishaoduo's eyes flash. Not showing it to me? Guarding against me? Or Miss Suyu. The Thunder Cat wanted to touch her hand. Let's play chess. Beauty's body flashed, and she began to suggest. Crush the opponent. In response to the other party's invitation, the Thunder Cat was instantly energized. Sure. He smiled and said, "To tell you the truth, I, the Thunder Cat, am the #1 chess player among the young generation in the UMNO alliance. I have been the champion in chess competitions for several years. I have always been known as the chess saint." After saying that, he really took out the photos of his championship trophy, and when he received the award, he showed them to the beauty to prove that what he said was true. He said proudly, "I can let Miss Sue have 3 pieces. Or, let's play some guided chess?" Beauty's smiled faintly and said reservedly, "Chess is just a small game. I play chess to cultivate my mind. I don't care about winning or losing. Let's play a game first. If you are much better than me, I will ask you to let me have 3 pieces." Okay. The Thunder Cat took out his chess set from the space ring elegantly. He insisted on letting Swishaoduo play black first. Beauty's was willing to take advantage of the situation, even if it was just a game of chess. Swishaoduo gladly obeyed and played black first. The first move was the center of the sky. In chess there was a saying, golden horn, silver edge, and grass belly. Even beginners knew that the center of the sky was not useful. However, Swishaoduo's first move was right there. The Thunder Cat was indeed a chess master. He ignored Swishaoduo's first move when both sides entered the game. He chose the small stone in the upper right corner. Swishaoduo took the upper left corner. The Thunder Cat took the lower right corner, and Swishaoduo took the lower left corner. The Thunder Cat took a big step and flew out from the lower right corner. He took the edge and threatened the central area. Swishaoduo, on the other hand, placed a piece into the top right corner with a paw sound, forcefully attacking and attempting to break a corner first. The Thunder Cat changed the situation quickly. Obviously, he wanted to test Swishaoduo's chess skills. However, Swishaoduo made a quick decision and cut off the Thunder Cat's first move. From this point on, the two sides were caught in a life-and-death battle. The Thunder Elemental Cat focused its attention, and after 3 moves, Swishaoduo made another sneaky move. He took the lead, and a heavenly soldier flew down and smashed into the lower right corner of the Thunder Elemental Cat, forming a 2-sided attack to protect the center. The Thunder Cat was slightly surprised. However, it was just the beginning of the game, and everything was still undecided. Leaving so early just to form a form of cooperation was like abandoning a child to fight to be the first. It was still suspicious of being too hasty. Therefore, he focused on the game. The two sides fought back and forth for an hour. Swishaoduo's face was full of joy. He played 1 piece and locked the Thunder Cat's dragon tail. He also played the entire upper right corner and half of the dragon's side. The game was set, and the winner was clear. The Thunder Cat's forehead was sweating. This game was really frustrating for him. His opponent's first move was the Tianyuan point. It was obviously a bad move. However, as the game went on, it became more and more like a coordinated attack. In the end, it became a coordinated attack. No matter which direction the opponent moved, the Thundercat had to respond. The Thundercat had no time to take care of other things, while the Thundercat still had time to set up a trap. However, the opponent's layers of traps made it impossible for him to remove the nail in the middle. Furthermore, his line of defense was slightly impacted and gradually fell apart. The thick and sturdy dragon was actually broken into two at the waist and separated into two parts. The dragon's tail was also slaughtered and covered in ink. I lost. Lady, you are really good at Go. The Thundercat praised, but he was not convinced. He had been studying Go for many years. He had won many championships with real swords and spears. How could he lose this game so easily? Well, it must be because he thought he was going to win and let his guard down. Otherwise, how could his opponent win so easily? It was absolutely unreasonable. Zhuo smiled faintly and started the second game. In this round, it was still Zhuo who went first. But this time, he took the upper right corner of the screen and started a strange formation called the avalanche set. He advanced triumphantly and once again defeated the Thundercat. In the third round, Zhuo used the great slanting demon blade to kill the Thundercat 3 times, leaving not a single piece of armor behind. In the dream world, Zhuo was a psychic. How could he not know how to play Go? These sets had been passed down for countless years. For Zhuo, who had been studying Go in and out of his dream world, with his brain power that was thousands of times stronger than normal people, it would be an exaggeration to say that he had never lost a game. He did not care about winning or losing, because he could not lose at all. No matter how much the Thundercat studied Go, no matter how much he studied Go theory, he could not jump out of the shackles of the current world. After losing 3 games in a row, the Thundercat was so depressed that he did not even have the heart to flirt with the girl. Before this, he was bragging that he was the champion of the Umno Alliance, the #1 player of the younger generation, the Sage of Go. However, in front of this girl, he lost 3 games in a row, and each game was worse than the previous one. In the last game, he even killed the dragon in the middle board. He really did not leave a single piece of armor behind. What's more, the 3 games played by this girl were very different from each other, as if they were played by 3 different groups of people. However, these 3 groups formed their own structure, and each group was far beyond the Thundercat's knowledge. The gap between their chess skills was really too big. The Thundercat, who had come to this conclusion, felt that his self-esteem was hurt. He, the mighty cat, also wanted to save face. So Miss Sue is such a master of Go. She really is a master of Go. The Thundercat wiped the sweat on his face. Even though he was still a little unwilling, how could he not know that he had admitted defeat, and lost everything? However, the change in his heart was getting bigger and bigger. When he first saw this girl, he only wanted to chase her because she was too beautiful. He just wanted to kiss her for her beauty. Of course, it would be better if he could go further. But now his heart had fundamentally changed. This Miss Sue was not only devastatingly beautiful, but she was also a rare and wondrous woman. At such a young age, she had already reached the god reigning level, and her foundation was very solid. She was not inferior to the Thundercat at all. After personally experiencing her temperament, it was also the best, natural and dignified. It seemed that she was proficient in music, Go, calligraphy, and painting. Such a girl could be said to be a natural candidate for the master's wife. Chapter 976. For such a girl, it would be a waste if he only indulged her for one night. Moreover, judging from her appearance, even if he had the intention, she would never do that kind of thing. Moreover, in these 3 consecutive losses, she had defeated him in 3 different ways. She had already faintly expressed her intention of rejecting him. All of a sudden, the Thundercat felt that his heart was really moved. It was budding. Miss Sue, you are indeed beautiful and intelligent. You are so talented that you are not inferior to men. The Thundercat's eyes suddenly became clear, and his face became more serious. The flirtatious look from before was completely gone. Xiaoduo did not understand the change in this guy's heart at all. He smiled faintly. Do you want to play again? No. The depth of your knowledge in the art of chess is not something I can compare to, the Thunder Cat said with a respectful attitude. I will go out to arrange something first. I will come back later to invite you to dinner. Okay. Xiaoduo felt strange that this guy suddenly respected him so much. It was a kind of politeness of an equal exchange. But he did not think too much about it, and agreed casually. The Thunder Cat walked out and sighed softly. If it was just a short-lived marriage, it wouldn't take much thought. However, if he wanted to marry the other party as his wife, it would be extremely difficult. It seems that I need to investigate Miss Su's family background carefully. The Thunder Cat frowned. At that time, I may need the help of my family to settle the marriage as soon as possible. Otherwise, based on my previous flirtatious behavior, I am afraid that Miss Su will not agree at all. Now that I am surrounded by wolves, if someone else beats me to it. Alas! At this moment, the Thunder Cat was very melancholy. He felt sincere regret for his previous behavior. If you meet the one you love, you will never be different. Alas! Until now, I really understand the true meaning of this sentence. The mighty cat was very melancholy. Have you sent the information of Miss Su back to the family? Yes, I have. Still no reply from the family. Cough cough. The guard was speechless. Today you flirt with a girl. Tomorrow you want the family to check on you? How can they have so much free time? His family's intelligence agency also needed to rest. I'm serious this time. Sigh, forget it, I'll call Seventh Uncle myself. The Thunder Cat was well aware of its reputation in the past. But this time, I really wasn't playing around. He took out his phone and dialed. Seventh Uncle, I'm a cat. What's the matter? If you're here to pick up girls, then don't bother me. No, Seventh Uncle, I'm serious this time. I want to marry her. The Thunder Cat begged. I'm serious this time. If I can marry her, I promise I'll be honest for the rest of my life. Are you serious? Seventh Uncle's voice also became serious. From his tone, it seemed that this nephew was going to turn over a new leaf. This was a good thing. What's your name? Pass it to me again. Okay, right away. The Thunder Cat was very obedient. Please, Seventh Uncle. And, if she's really a girl from a good family, you should get married early, settle down, and do some proper work. What's so bad about competing? It's a waste of your talent to act frivolously every day. Seventh Uncle lectured. Seventh Uncle is right. After putting down the phone, the Thunder Cat was exultant. There was hope. As long as the family was willing to step in, there was a 90% chance of success. In the UMNO alliance, no family could refuse the marriage proposal from the Lei family. The remaining 10% would be Miss Su's opinion. But it didn't matter. In the room, Xiaoduo frowned and pondered. Previously, he had tried to get information from the Thunder Cat a few times, wanting to take a look at the so-called Sky Thunder Mirror. However, although the Thunder Cat was infatuated, he still interrupted him. It sounded like he didn't care. But Xiaoduo knew that how could such a person be so casual? Unless he was pretending to be stupid. This time, Xiaoduo intended to train himself. Just like what the old man had said, this was a rare opportunity for him to practice with real swords and spears. Xiaoduo never thought of cutting corners. On the contrary, he wanted more excitement. It would be even better if he could directly break through to the Sky Realm in the UMNO alliance. Before this, Xiaoduo didn't even dare to dream of doing this. However, since the old man had already forced him to this extent and threw him here, he would be letting himself down if he didn't properly train himself. Therefore, this time, he gave up on all the conveniences and wanted to train himself. Actually, Xiaoduo knew that no matter how harsh the old man's words were, with his ability, it wasn't difficult for him to return safely. He could just find a place to hide and cultivate in the Tower of Annihilation for a month or two. Then when he came out, he would be able to reach the profound mastery level. However, on the path of martial arts, every step of the way was very important. For example, when you have a strength of 1,000 kilograms, do you know how to use it? How to save it? What kind of strength would you encounter? And what would be the best solution? Only knowing the theory wouldn't do. A tiger cub would imitate a dead wolf hunting for its whole life. But it wouldn't dare to attack a real wolf. Even if it attacked, it might not be a match for the wolf. This was the reason. Only by strengthening the foundation, at every step would it work. If 1,000 kilograms of strength was raised to 10,000 kilograms without experience in battle, the gap between each level of strength would be a gap that could never be filled. When it came to a profound level of strength, it was necessary to control each output. The greater the gap between the same level and the same level of strength, the greater the gap between them. Why was it that when two people were at the peak of the sky realm, both had the same cultivation technique, and both suppressed their cultivation for a certain number of times, the outcome of the battle could be decided so quickly? That was the reason. Therefore, Swordsmanship didn't even prepare to use the Heavenman Stone this time. It was only in existence as a trump card. They fought in the land of the Wizard Alliance. Real injuries, real healing, and real battles. Charge. Fight. Fight. Other than life-saving methods, Swordsmanship didn't intend to let himself enjoy too much of the cheat-like benefits. It could be used as a skill, but it definitely couldn't be relied on, because it wasn't pure strength. Swordsmanship knew this very well. He also knew that if he disguised himself as a man and came to Lone Bamboo City, his identity would be exposed sooner or later. Because no matter how good his disguise was, he couldn't let this person, who made something out of nothing, have a real history and family background. Lone Bamboo City was just a transit station for him. And now, whether it was the Thunder Cat or the other families, someone should be investigating his identity. Swordsmanship would never underestimate anyone in this aspect. Especially after experiencing the fierce battle at Lone Bamboo Mountain, and hearing the plan from the Thunder Cat. Swordsmanship knew this very well. There really wasn't anyone who was stupid, including the Thunder Cat, who wasn't stupid. There wasn't much time left for him to leave safely. While Swordsmanship and the Thunder Cat were playing chess, countless people from the 7 families outside had already turned Lone Bamboo City upside down. They were trying their best to find Swordsmanship. Their spiritual power reached up to 8,000 meters above the ground and down to 1,000 meters below the ground. It was an all-encompassing search. Everyone from the 7 families, including the Flying Heavens and Tao integration experts who were watching from the sky, including the UMNO Alliance martial artists who came spontaneously from all over the place, as well as the people under the incineration order, who had already gathered here. All of them were dumbfounded. Where was Swordsmanship? Where did this kid go? Even after such a thorough search, not a single strand of Swordsmanship's hair could be found. Wasn't this too illogical? How could such a living person turn into air and disappear? But even if he turned into air, there should still be soul waves, right? Everyone was confused. Then, they had no choice but to fly up to the clouds to find their seniors. The seniors had been watching from the sky, but did they see Swordsmanship? They didn't need to do anything. Even if it wasn't convenient for them to say it out loud, they could just give them a hint or point them in the direction. But in the clouds, most of the experts were expressionless and unmoving, but they were cursing in their hearts. We didn't see Swordsmanship either. A few Tao integration experts narrowed their eyes and said, Swordsmanship didn't leave. His soul is still in Lone Bamboo City, but it's very faint. It's in a state where he hasn't condensed his energy, is not using his spells, and is not using his energy. It's just like an ordinary person with his vital energy restrained. He must have put on some makeup and disguised himself as someone else. The people below understood and bowed respectfully. He was still in Lone Bamboo City, but they didn't know where he was hiding for now. As long as they could confirm that he was in Lone Bamboo City, they were afraid that he wasn't there. Above the clouds, a few people looked at each other. You can feel Swordsmanship's soul waves? I can't. Then you said that his soul waves were still in Lone Bamboo City? And what's with his vital energy restrained? An ordinary person? I'm using common sense to infer that he can only be in Lone Bamboo City. Where else can he go? How can he not be searched by our divine senses? He can only be in a state where his vital energy is restrained, and he's an ordinary person. What else? Do you have any other explanation? Aren't you lying to the people below? I've already made the judgment that best fits the current situation. Do you really want to say that all of us old fellows are going to say that we don't know? Is that really a good thing? Damn, what you said makes sense. Great wisdom, great wisdom. The people who came up to ask immediately went down to report. Zhuoxiaoduo's soul waves are still in Lone Bamboo City. He must be in a state where his vital energy is restrained. He must have put on some makeup and disguised himself as someone else. That's right. No matter how bold Zhuoxiaoduo is, he wouldn't dare to enter Lone Bamboo City with his original appearance. Isn't that asking for death? It's good that we can confirm that he's in Lone Bamboo City. But if he disguised himself as someone else, his vital energy wouldn't be obvious. It would be troublesome. There are almost 6 million people in Lone Bamboo City. The 7 young masters of the 7 families met again to discuss the next step. What we lack now is a way to force Zhuoxiaoduo out. Everyone stared at him. Everyone's eyes fell on Sha Hun, Hai Hunshan, Sha Yu, and Kami no Su. Especially this time, there was another young master from the Sha family. This young master was famous for not using his brain. He was only a martial arts fanatic. He was crazy about martial arts and had amazing strength, but he never used his brain. Straight to the point. This young master was called Sha Diao. Sha Diao said, "Could Zhuoxiaoduo have disguised himself as a woman? If that's the case, we can only look for men and not find out." Everyone took a deep breath. If you can't think about it, then shut up. We're used to ignoring it. We can't think of a way, but you're still causing trouble. It's easy for a man to dress up as a woman. Men and women are different. Is it so easy to dress up? But Sha Hun, Hai Hunshan, and a few others suddenly felt their hearts skip a beat after the habitual scolding. This. Chapter 977. Okay. Sha Diao was scolded and immediately shut up. Sha Hun and Hai Hunshan frowned and pondered. A young woman? A woman? The two of them looked at each other thoughtfully. This was the same direction. The Thunder Cat was calm. He had been thinking about how to get closer to the beautiful woman when he got back. He didn't even think about it. The Thunder Cat had brought a female companion into Lone Bamboo City. Obviously, no one was suspicious of their companions. Is there a way to search the divine soul? Sha Yu whispered. As long as they could collect Zhuoxiaoduo's divine soul mark, everything would be easy. Everyone looked at the other young master. Tu Yinxiao. He was from the Tu family of the Endless Witch. Tu Yinxiao looked helpless. He said, "I know that you all want my divine soul mark. But there is a limit to the divine soul mark. You need to see Zhuoxiaoduo and find Zhuoxiaoduo's divine soul within a limited distance. Only then can you activate the divine soul mark and find Zhuoxiaoduo. But we haven't seen Zhuoxiaoduo yet. The divine soul mark isn't that effective." Hearing Tu Yinxiao's words, all the young masters felt a sense of powerlessness and disappointment. Indeed, they had prepared a trap and were determined to get Zhuoxiaoduo. As long as Zhuoxiaoduo showed up, he would be dead for sure. But Zhuoxiaoduo was strange. He didn't show up and hid in the crowd as an ordinary person. What should they do? Show us Zhuoxiaoduo's information, appearance, etc. Let's look at it a few more times and study it, Sha Hun suggested. And so, Zhuoxiaoduo's heroic image appeared in the UMNO Alliance's meeting room again. The young master's eyes lit up. So handsome. On the other hand, several unprepossessing young masters had black lines running down their foreheads. At a time like this, she was still paying attention to whether the other party was handsome or not. Was there something wrong with her focus? A woman's way of thinking was truly incomprehensible. However, after several hours of discussion, they still felt helpless. Do we have no choice but to passively wait for Zhuoxiaoduo to appear? Sha Zhi frowned. That's all we can do for now. Sha Hun narrowed his eyes and frowned, exchanging glances with Hai Hunshan and the others. Search all female martial artists above the nascent soul transformation stage, who are not registered in the Lone Bamboo City. Sha Hun transmitted his voice. Hai Hunshan nodded slowly. Hai Hunshan immediately sent a voice transmission to issue the order. However, as he was in the process of issuing the order, he suddenly remembered something. Hurriedly, he sent a message to Sha Hun. That Thundercat. I heard that it hooked up with a girl before it arrived at Lone Bamboo City? Sha Hun was stunned. You didn't bring it from home? Suddenly he focused his gaze. Both of them turned to look at the Thundercat. While they were having the meeting, Zhuo was also at the window on the top floor, observing the surrounding environment. His heart was itching unbearably. The trap set by the other party was undoubtedly extremely dangerous. Death was at hand, but the 5 treasures mentioned by the mighty cat really made Master's heart beat faster. Sky-shaking gong, soul-hurting arrow, heavenly thunder mirror, immortal tying lock, yin-yang mirror. Just from the sound of it, one could tell that it was something good. He really wanted it. But they definitely wouldn't give it to him. What should he do? He thought about it seriously, and his brows furrowed slightly. This scene seemed even more beautiful and magnificent when it entered into the eyes of others. A peerless beauty sat leisurely by the window. Her beautiful hair fluttered in the wind, her gaze was deep, and her brows were lightly knit together. She seemed delicate and powerless, yet she possessed an immortal aura that seemed as if she wanted to ride the wind and leave. Sitting deep and frowning, no one knew who the beauty was thinking of. She was really too beautiful. Zhuo was still racking his brains, painstakingly plotting to get the other party's treasures. Suddenly Zhuo's eyes widened. What was that thing down there? As far as his eyes could see, there was a long line of carriages the size of a matchbox, pulling something all the way to the west. This was Zhuo recognized it at a glance. He was too familiar with this thing. That was the Astral Soul's jade powder. Oh my god. How could there be such a large quantity? Could there be a Umno Alliance High Martial Arts School here? This now was the crucial time for the space of the Tower of Annihilation. Should he take a risk for the Astral Soul's jade powder? Zhuo thought for a while, but still did not want to let it go. After all this time, he did not know how long it would take for him to return. Would the meridians in the Tower of Annihilation not be replenished for a few months? Obviously this would not work. Zhuo frowned, watching the carriages disappear around the corner. His eyes flashed, and suddenly, he took out a bottle of laurel honey from the space ring and opened it bit by bit. He used the extremely precious laurel honey to stimulate the scent, and used it as a perfume. It filled the air for a while, and then her delicate body was immersed in the fragrance for a moment. Then, she opened the window, and her white dress fluttered. Whoosh! She floated out like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Her posture was elegant, beautiful, and overflowing with radiance. She was devastatingly beautiful. In an instant, the entire sky above the Lone Bamboo Hotel was suddenly filled with the rich and elegant scent of osmanthus. Within a few thousand meters, as long as one smelled it, they could not help but feel that their minds were suddenly much clearer. Countless people could not help but look up. In midair, they saw a fairy in white, her clothes fluttering, and her hair dancing in the wind. The nimble and graceful figure that flashed by carried boundless beauty and boundless immortal energy, as it vanished into the distance. Although that peerless fairy's speed was extremely fast, everyone could clearly feel that it was as if she was moving in slow motion. This kind of extreme beauty, this kind of scene of a fairy descending to the mortal world, lingered in their hearts, replaying over and over again. In a flash, the beauty had disappeared into the distance, but the 2 ribbons still seemed to ripple in front of their eyes. Intoxicated, like a fairy, like a dream, it made people linger and forget to return. Infinitely intoxicated. Countless people would remember this day, especially the graceful figure and the rich scent of bay laurel, that there were many people who would never be able to forget it. In fact, there were even quite a few people who became poets on this day. The legend of the fairy descending to the mortal world also spread in Lone Bamboo City for a long time. Laurel fragrance floats in the 9 heavens. The blue sky is filled with colorful dresses, dreamlike, like a fairy's presence. It makes me yearn for it. The young masters of the various clans who were still in the meeting also smelled the pervasive scent of bay laurel. Their minds raced as they stood up one by one. What is this smell? I can feel that. My soul is in an unprecedented state of clarity. Is there a treasure? The young masters who were facing the window unintentionally raised their heads and saw the beautiful figure flash by. Immediately, their souls became ethereal. Their eyes were full of intoxication. There is a beauty, a young master said with a groan. The Thunder Cat subconsciously stood up. Where is she? Everyone frowned at the same time. The Thunder Cat felt more and more uneasy, and hurriedly floated out, and went straight to the top of the building. He felt more and more fragrant, but that intoxicating fragrance was slowly dispersing. He opened the door and went in, and could not help but be stunned. The beauty was nowhere to be found. All of a sudden, the Thunder Cat felt lost. Miss Duo, where did you go? At this time Shahan walked over. Thunder Cat, that girl of yours. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw the Thunder Cat fly out in a hurry, ignoring what Shahan said. Shahan was stunned, but the Thunder Cat had already disappeared. Swordsmanship flew out in such a brazen manner. Wherever he went, countless people would fall head over heels for him. That omnipresent fragrance, that fairy-like and dreamlike feeling. She flew all the way, and finally, she saw the team slowly leave the city and go to a huge waste site. Swordsmanship looked at it and was overjoyed. It turned out that this was a place specially for discarding Astral Soul's jade powder. Although there were many other things, most of them were piles of Astral Soul's jade powder, that although the taste was not very good, how could Swordsmanship dislike it? God knows how many years of Astral Soul's jade powder had been piled up here. The beauty's figure flashed in the air, and instantly turned into mist. She left behind a fragrance, and disappeared in the forest opposite the waste site. That strong fragrance was blown all the way to the depths of the forest by the mountain wind. As for Swordsmanship, he had already drilled into the ground. For the sake of caution, he controlled his spirit sense, and didn't disperse it. He even used his true essence to wrap around the aura of his flaming sun scripture, only burning 3 feet away from his body. He slowly sank down a few hundred meters. Then, he changed his path, and extended in that direction. Nothing was more important than safety. At this time at the city gate, the Thunder Cat chased out anxiously, following the fragrance, and shouted, Miss Sue, where are you? Sister Duo, Sister Duo. It was as if it was chasing crazily. The guards of the Lei family were following behind it, but they were speechless. An hour later, in this waste site, that was rarely visited by people, the piles of Astral Soul's jade powder began to disappear. After a long time, Swordsmanship took away most of the Star Soul jade powder, and went back to where he came from. Then, he started digging a hole in the opposite direction from where he was at the start of his stealth. In a desolate mountain, the Thunder Cat was anxiously looking for a beautiful woman with a group of people. Sister Duo. The Thunder Cat was really about to cry. His heart felt as if it had been divided into several pieces by blood. Don't go. I really fell in love with you. I want to take you as my wife. I'm not just playing around. Woo. I'm serious this time. But why did you leave without saying goodbye? Why is that? What did I do wrong? I'll change, okay? His heart was beating fast, and he was in a panic. It was a panic of I'm about to lose. I'll never pick up girls again. I'll be loyal to you until the end. The Thunder Cat beat his chest and stamped his feet, regretting. All of a sudden, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Have you picked up a lot of girls before? Looking for a guaranteed monthly ticket. Chapter 978. The Thunder Cat felt as if he was struck by lightning. He turned around in a daze, and saw a beautiful woman smiling amidst a field of mountain flowers. She was in a snow-white dress floating in the air. The elegant scent of laurel was refreshing. Miss Sue. The Thunder Cat choked with sobs. You scared me to death. I thought you had left. Ignored me. Something came up, but it's done now. Miss Sue smiled and said, Shall we go back? Good. Let's go back. The Thunder Cat kept nodding. The people of the Lei family surrounded Miss Sue, as if they were escorting the only treasure in their lives, and walked back to the lone bamboo city. Unlike the Thunder Cat, who was glad that he got back what he had lost, the guards of the Lei family were more or less confused. Something was not right. Why did Miss Sue come out? And the way she disappeared was weird, and the way she appeared now was even weirder. But our ninth young master was enchanted and did not ask anything. It seemed that he did not dare to ask anything. The only thing in his mind was that the beauty would disappear again. Maybe this is the so-called beauty's privilege. A guard sighed. That's right. But she's so fragrant. Even if it were me, I would only wholeheartedly protect such a woman. Questioning such a woman is a crime. Another guard said faintly, that's right. That beauty, that fragrance, she smells so good. A guard said, on the way. The Thunder Cat could not completely ignore the situation. Miss Sue, may I ask why you came out this time? The Thunder Cat tried to sound her out. Young Master Lei, are you questioning me? Swishaoduo sneered and said with a cold face. No, I don't mean that. I wouldn't dare. The Thunder Cat had completely entered the mindset of a henpecked husband. He said carefully, I am just worried about you. Swishaoduo snorted and said lightly, I heard you say that you had a lot of girls. Can you tell me how many you had? A women-only counterattack to change the topic. Swishaoduo used him so well. The main reason was that he had been tormented by this move countless times. A layer of cold sweat appeared on the Thunder Cat's face. She wished she could slap her own mouth. Just now, she only cared about regretting what she had said, and regretted what she shouldn't have said. Now the consequences had arrived. The most important thing was that the consequences were not easy to talk about, nor were they pleasant. There was no way to talk about it at all. When he thought of this, he was no longer in the mood to ask the beauty why she came out for such a trivial matter. His mind was filled with thoughts of how he should exonerate himself, and how he could obtain the beauty's forgiveness. Swishaoduo snorted, and arrogantly flew toward the city with a cold face. The Thunder Cat followed behind him with its tail between its legs. It became more and more attentive and attentive. Looking at the Thunder Cat's careful behavior, Swishaoduo understood the mentality of the person in front of him very well. Wasn't this the same mentality he had all along? Every time he quarreled with Zhuxiaonian, or Zhuxiaonian was at loggerheads with him, it was exactly like this. It was not just similar, it was exactly the same. As a girl, she didn't need to explain anything. She only needed to find a reason to be angry, and the rest was up to the man's imagination. I can appear and disappear as I please. This is my freedom. Who are you to ask? You are just looking for trouble. Don't be angry. I'm just worried about you. The Thunder Cat explained in a low voice. Swishaoduo flew forward with a cold face, still ignoring him. Explaining was covering up, and covering up meant that it was true. The more you explained, the more you were wrong. I won't ask, okay? It's my fault. It's all my fault. The Thunder Cat continued to speak in a low voice. Continued to ignore him. Only by ignoring him could he consolidate all the mistakes on the person in front of him. If he ignored him now, all his previous efforts would be wasted. Say something. You're making me nervous. Continued to ignore him. He had completely destroyed the defense in his opponent's heart. What on earth do you want me to do? The Thunder Cat pulled his hair painfully. Swishaoduo turned around and suddenly got angry. Why are you so fierce? Are you throwing a tantrum at me? The Thunder Cat was stunned. I'm not angry. When did I lose my temper? If you're not angry, why are you so loud? And you say you're not angry. Swishaoduo stared at him. I'm wrong. It's all my fault. Tell me, what did you do wrong? I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be loud. I shouldn't be angry with you. See, you're really angry. You just said you weren't angry. You were angry with me, but you still lied and denied it. The Thunder Cat had a feeling of wanting to die. It was out of control. Why are there more and more accusations? I didn't do anything. What do you mean by suddenly not talking? You don't even want to talk to me. You're playing with me. Scumbag. Sure enough, men were not good things. Even you are not an exception? So you are also like this. I'm wrong. What's wrong? As the cycle of mistakes continued, the guards of the Lei family began to pity their master. This Miss Sue really wasn't someone to be trifled with. If this marriage was successful, the Thunder Cat would definitely be a slave to his wife for the rest of his life, and he would never be able to turn over a new leaf. On the way back to the hotel, the Thunder Cat still didn't manage to coax the beauty. He was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. He was so anxious that his clothes were soaked with sweat. He bumped into the young masters who were already in the hotel lobby. Zhuo Xiaoduo walked through the crowd with a cold face, as if there was no one around. But he was still so elegant and cold. Only the scent of laurel gradually filled the air that all the young masters were shocked. So, it was this beauty from before. She was indeed an outstanding beauty, unparalleled and unparalleled. Especially this cold and noble temperament, that she was really too beautiful. Looking at the Thunder Cat chasing after the beauty like a pug, he didn't even stop to talk to the crowd. So the Thunder Cat has been chasing after this girl. She is really a beauty that can topple a country. It's rare to see. Sha Han squinted his eyes and looked at the Thunder Cat, who was apologizing like a pug. Although he was praising the beauty, he had a strange feeling in his heart. He felt that something was not right, as if something was not right. But what exactly he wanted to say, he couldn't say anything. It didn't seem like a man dressed as a woman. The investigation results were not out yet. Hai Hunshan frowned and said, "You still have the time to think about other people's romance? Don't just stand there. Think about how to find Zhuo Xiaoduo." Sha Han squinted and said, "I have an idea, but I'm afraid you won't dare to do it." "What idea?" everyone asked together. According to the basic information about Zhuo Xiaoduo, his cultivation is not bad. His combat power is even higher. And his appearance is also outstanding. He is good at many kinds of weapons, fists, palms, swords, and hidden weapons. He is good at everything. But he has one weakness, which is that he is greedy. He sees money as his life. Wherever he goes, the sky is 9 feet high. Sha Han said lightly, "My idea is to lure him with money and spread the news that we have treasures. With Zhuo Xiaoduo's greed, he will definitely do something." Everyone's eyes lit up. "You mean, lure the snake out of its hole?" Sha Han smiled and didn't say anything. However, everyone's face became gloomy, and they all fell into silence and thought. It was indeed an idea, and it was a very feasible one. But the risk factor of this idea was also too high. If they were suddenly attacked by Zhuo Xiaoduo and lost their lives, it would be no laughing matter. Based on the strength that Zhuo Xiaoduo had shown so far, compared to their own strength, Zhuo Xiaoduo's sudden attack was enough to kill any one of them. The disciples of the big families of the Alliance had the protection of their elders' divine sense, so they weren't afraid of Zhuo Xiaoduo's sudden attack. But there were also those who didn't have the protection of divine sense. Once such a situation occurred, the person involved would be in more danger. "Let's do it this way." Hai Hunshan waved his hand. "If we delay any longer, Zhuo Xiaoduo might quietly return to the astral souls. We can only talk about strategy on paper." Everyone smiled bitterly. What he said made sense. Tu Yunxiao has already gone to Lone Bamboo Mountain to collect Zhuo Xiaoduo's residual aura. Should we wait? As long as his spiritual seal can capture a little bit, it will be easy to find Zhuo Xiaoduo. Or maybe we just need to lock down Lone Bamboo Mountain and make sure that no one leaves. Someone suggested. "We can't wait any longer." Hai Hunshan and Sha Han shook their heads in unison. It was just a battle. As long as Zhuo Xiaoduo's spiritual seal wasn't injured, even if they collected a little bit of Zhuo Xiaoduo's residual aura, it might not be useful. Tu Yunxiao's trip was just a test, and he didn't have much hope. "Let's start tonight." Everyone had made up their minds. Sha Han narrowed his eyes and walked towards his room. He was still thinking that when he saw that beautiful woman, he felt that something was wrong. But what could be wrong with such a fairy-like person? Seeing Sha Yu walking in front of him, Sha Han's narrowed eyes flashed with a flash of light. Suddenly he shouted, "Sha Yu, what's the matter? That woman. What do you think?" Sha Han asked. "You like her?" Sha Yu curled her lips. The only person who could resist the charm of a great beauty to the greatest extent was a noble lady from an extraordinary family. "No, I always feel that. The sudden appearance of such an outstanding woman is a bit abrupt," Sha Han said. The moment he said this, he suddenly felt a sense of enlightenment surging in his heart. He finally understood what was wrong. The Alliance was no doubt huge, and each family had hidden geniuses. This was not surprising. However, such a peerless beauty would not be unknown, let alone appear in Lone Bamboo City so abruptly. This in itself was a big point of suspicion, and full of dissonance. If the Shah family had such a woman, would our family be so assured to let her come out alone? Although her strength is not bad, when it comes to protecting herself, her peerless appearance is not enough. Shahan asked himself. Then he took a deep breath. Shayu stood in front of him, and after a while he didn't speak. She frowned and asked, "What's wrong?" Shahan narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "I stopped you just now to let you change into the long dress and walk around. But now it seems that there is no need for that." Shayu also narrowed her eyes. She was also a smart person. She said, "Are you doubting this beautiful woman?" "I am no longer doubting her." Shahan took a deep breath and said, "I am almost certain that there is something strange about this woman." Shayu said lightly, "I will check her background." "Okay, you must be careful. She may be very dangerous, far more dangerous than the strength she has shown." "Understood, I will be careful." Shahan immediately took out his phone and asked Hai Hunshan and the others to gather in the big meeting room. When everyone received the notice, they were all confused. Didn't the meeting just end? What was going on? Everyone went to the meeting room in confusion. Shahan narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Everyone, please wait patiently for a moment. I think as long as we wait, we will get some good news." "What good news? Have you found Wuxia's tracks?" Shahan just smiled and didn't say anything. He didn't give any more information. Everyone was burning with anxiety, but no matter how they asked, he did not speak or respond. Everyone was helpless, but they could only patiently wait with him. A few of the more impatient ones were so anxious that they almost wanted to beat him up. On the other side, Shayu had already taken the elevator to the top floor. Shayu found the guards of the Thunder Cat and asked a few questions. Then she came down. "Surname Su? Many. This name may not be true." Shayu immediately started to send out orders. First, she investigated the big families near Lone Bamboo City. Shayu also asked for information about some of the lower middle families, but she didn't have much hope. After all, a girl who looked to be at most in her 20s was already at the god reigning level. This was not something that a small family could cultivate. At the same time, secretly cultivating a young genius god reigning level master was not a secret that a small family could keep. Such a beauty that could bring disaster to a country was not a good resource that an ordinary family could protect. Yes, resources, good resources. As a woman, Shayu strongly disagreed with this theory. But she had to admit that beauty was a resource in the current world, a good resource. And it was a resource that only the strong could enjoy. The weak couldn't protect such a good resource. For this investigation, to be on the safe side, they directly investigated an area with a radius of 15,000 miles. With the order, the UMNO Alliance immediately started to work. In less than 30 minutes, all the information about the families was sent to them. There were also keynotes and comments. Shayu quickly went through the list. She first confirmed that there were no big clans with the surname Su. There were 2 medium-sized clans with the surname Su. However, there were many names that didn't appear in these 2 clans. If this girl is not Swishaoduo disguised as a man, then she must be using a fake name. Many of the names are full of bad taste. After checking again and confirming the situation, Shayu stood up without saying anything and went downstairs. From the beginning to the end, she was very calm and didn't alert the evil at all. Swishaoduo was still in the room, chatting with the Thunder Cat. Swishaoduo was also calculating the time and paying attention to the time. At this time, under such circumstances, there was not much time left. It was almost time for his whereabouts to be exposed. A young girl who suddenly appeared, and such an outstanding girl. It would be strange if she wasn't investigated. Swishaoduo believed that it was quite lucky for him to be able to delay until now without being exposed. And the Thunder Cat in front of him seemed to be obedient to him. But when it came to investigating his background, this guy was definitely the most active one. Who knew which Su family had been investigated to now? These days, I feel that the atmosphere is not right, and the pressure is extremely heavy. Beauty's cold voice carried some concern. She said, when Zhuo shows up, it will be the time of a fierce battle. Child Lei, you must remember to take care of yourself. Nothing else is important except your life. Hearing the beauty's concern, the Thunder Cat felt lighter all over. He said proudly, don't worry, unless Zhuo doesn't show up, as long as he shows up. Hee, I guarantee that he won't be able to return. Oh, Beauty's asked curiously, is Child Lei's heavenly thunder mirror so powerful? No chance of survival, no chance of rescue? What's the big deal about death? My mirror is more powerful than this. The Thunder Cat laughed, and his face was full of high spirits. I wonder how powerful this heavenly lightning mirror is. Beauty's said, it's just a mirror. It's already amazing that there is no chance of rescue, no chance of survival. Hee. The Thunder Cat hesitated, and did not give an immediate answer. Beauty's laughed and said lightly, Child's heavenly thunder mirror is the key to the battle against Zhuo. It's right to be vigilant against an outsider like me. Child, you don't have to feel embarrassed, I won't ask anymore. She paused and said, actually, it's just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Since I don't have the chance to see it, I'll leave it for another day. After that he didn't say anything else. This was the second time this topic was brought up, especially after she got angry, that the Thunder Cat was so anxious, that he almost had acne on his face. He immediately took out a mirror from his ring and said, as you said, the heavenly thunder mirror is just a mirror. This is it. Beauty's laughed, but did not say anything. She did not even turn her eyes. It showed that I wasn't that interested in this. It's really this. The Thunder Cat said anxiously, look, with this mirror in hand, you only need to. At this moment, the Thunder Cat's phone rang. Moreover, the phone had been ringing nonstop since the beginning. The Thunder Cat looked frustrated. It might be something urgent. I have to answer the phone first. He stepped back a few steps and picked up the phone, saying directly, who is it? What's the matter? Don't you know that it's a great crime to disturb someone's sleep? Hai Hunshan's voice came from the phone. Thundercat, are you okay now? Come here. I have something important to tell you. The Thundercat said, what important thing can you have? I'm the one who has something important to tell you. The other side paused, and then said in a normal voice, it's really urgent. Come here right now. I have something important to tell you, but it's hard to explain it over the phone. Zhuo's eyes flashed, and then he became indifferent again. On the other side of the phone, Hai Hunshan grabbed the phone and made a gesture. Sha Hun and the others understood, and started to make arrangements immediately. The Thundercat said, what's so important that you can't tell me over the phone? Hai Hunshan said, I told you to come down, so come down. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up. It's urgent. The Thundercat cursed and hung up the phone. When he was about to talk to Beauty's the phone rang again. He looked at it and hurriedly picked it up. Seventh uncle? When he asked his family to investigate this girl, he asked seventh uncle, the head of the Lei family's intelligence organization. An anxious voice came from the other side of the phone. Nung Mao, are you still with that Miss Su? At the side, Zhuo narrowed his eyes. The Thundercat was embarrassed, saying, seventh uncle, this. You. Seventh uncle understood as soon as he heard this. He chuckled and said, Miss Su is a good girl. You have to cherish her. And if it's convenient for you, step aside. Your mother asked me to tell you something. Oh, okay. The Thundercat took the phone and walked out. However, to show his sincerity, to get the Beauty's forgiveness, or to be misled by the words Miss Su is a good girl, you should cherish her. He put the Sky Thunder mirror on the table, and didn't take it out. I'll come back after answering a call. When the Thundercat went to open the door, Zhuo made a prompt decision, and put the Sky Thunder mirror into the space ring at lightning speed. Then his body flashed, and he rushed to the window in a semi-energy state. His identity was exposed. There was no doubt about it, and there was no luck. But it was an unexpected surprise that he could get a little extra benefit at the last moment. Finally, he got the Sky Thunder mirror. that but just as Wuxiao's figure rushed out of the window, a thunderous roar suddenly resounded. "Miss, where are you going?" Following which, a golden light shot towards him. Wuxiao's body flashed as half of his body, and half of his body turned into energy. He dodged the golden light by a hair's breadth and soared into the sky. However, at this moment, there was already a huge net of hands in the air, heading towards him. With a whistling sound, a lot of black spots shot out from Wuxiao's hand. Eternal star stones. Densely packed, they rushed out like a raging tide. Chapter 979. Puff, puff, puff. Puffed out, a series of blood-curdling screams could be heard. How could Wuxiao not know that this was a matter of life and death? Naturally, he didn't dare to hold back anymore. The first thing he did was to use the Starry Sky indestructible stones. A total of 200 stones were shot out in one go. More than 30 people were hit on their foreheads, and more than 70 people were hit on other parts of their bodies. Some of the unlucky ones were hit by 3 or 4 stones, but more than 20 stones missed their targets. After Hai Hunshan called the Thunder Cat, he started to make arrangements without waiting for the Thunder Cat to come down. However, Wuxiao was alerted. When Wuxiao rushed out, Hai Hunshan's men had just arrived. The time difference was less than a second, or even less than half a second. However, Wuxiao had already rushed out of the window. That was the difference of half a second. If Wuxiao had been slower by half a second, he would have fallen into a heavy encirclement. It would be harder than ascending to the heavens, if he wanted to escape. But now, although the situation was still bad, at least it was not the worst situation yet. There was still room to maneuver. Behind him, the Thunder Cat rushed to the window like a whirlwind and looked at Wuxiao in disbelief. He roared angrily, "You? Who are you? Who are you?" Wuxiao laughed. He turned his long sword and sent out waves of snow. Sword chi overflowed. Then, he turned into a shooting star with a long roar. There were more than 170 Starry Sky indestructible stones that were sent out before. They all followed Wuxiao, as if they were responding to her call. Wuxiao grabbed them and disappeared in a flash. In the sky, a young man in white was standing upright with a big seal in his hand. It was shining. Who else could it be but Tu Yunxiao? The big seal had collected all the soul waves and aura of the fighters. Hai Hunshan's white robe flashed as he rushed in front of Tu Yunxiao and said, "Have you collected Wuxiao's soul fluctuations?" He moved at such a close distance. Of course, he can't escape. Tu Yunxiao lightly breathed in, his face filled with boundless joy. "Luckily, I didn't bring up my soul imprint during the meeting that day." Hai Hunshan took a deep breath and said seriously, "You are really lucky. Sai, this is really..." The two of them had nothing else to say except that they were lucky. When Wuxiao rushed out of the window, he spread his half-energy spiritual seal. This was the best way to prevent their original plan. He was on guard. In this way, the soul-hurting arrow in yin-yang mirror would not work. He was definitely prepared. This Thunder Cat. Everyone was speechless. Looking back at the window, the Thunder Cat stood in the air in a daze, staring blankly at the direction where Wuxiao disappeared. His eyes were red and filled with tears. Suddenly, he shouted himself hoarse, "Liar!" Tears flowed out of his eyes. Wuxiao rushed out a few hundred zhang like lightning, and stopped for half a second. What he was facing now was more than a dozen returnants profound realm experts. Their divine souls were completely connected as one, and they were coming at him with a resolute momentum. Countless attacks were coming from all directions, and they were concentrated in the middle like a storm. Sword light burst forth, shattering the space and causing black cracks to appear. At the moment when the spiritual seals were about to hit him, Wuxiao let out a muffled groan. The wide white gauze dress that covered his body suddenly exploded into pieces and turned into white butterflies. But under the influence of the abundant spiritual qi, they flew in all directions like steel blades. At the same time, with the sound of breaking air, 16 small gourds followed behind the scattered pieces of white gauze, adding to their destructive power. But behind the small gourds, there were 16 star immortal stone hexagonal particles. Using a mysterious method they attacked. As expected, the sounds of continuous attacks rang out. The returning Xian cultivators, who were heading towards them, were already prepared to die, and were going all out. At this moment, they completely ignored the scattered pieces of white gauze. Although they saw the small gourds following closely behind, what they wanted was to get close to Zhuo as quickly as possible and launch a self-detonating attack. Even though they knew that they would be injured if they took the small gourds head-on, they would rather be injured and take advantage of the situation. Then they felt the small gourds hit their bodies. They only felt pain for a moment. The spiritual qi that had already been detonated dissipated the impact. They couldn't help but feel more relieved. They took the opportunity to get closer to Zhuo, but in the next moment all of them, without exception, were hit. Their eyes bulged, and their faces twisted. The star immortal stone hexagonal particles that followed closely behind the small gourds all hit their bodies. And unlike the small gourds, which couldn't break through their protective spiritual qi, their destructive power was extremely great. With a whoosh, they entered their bodies and tore their bodies apart. Their blood and flesh were torn apart, and their meridians were broken, that the people who were hit were in intense pain. They could no longer maintain their spiritual qi. They screamed in agony. What kind of hidden weapon is this? Zhuo put his palms together, and then separated them. With a muffled boom, endless spiritual qi surged like a tsunami. The formation of the 16 people that had been heavily injured by the star immortal stone disintegrated instantly. They flew out in 16 directions. With another flash of lightning, another 3 swords attacked in a triangular formation. It was 3 people who had used the body and sword as one technique to attack. Zhuo snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, the 16-star immortal stone hexagonal particles in the air shone brightly and met the attacking swords head-on. Because of the sudden change, the hexagonal particles didn't have time to aim accurately. Instead, they forced their way into the sword light. A series of crackling sounds could be heard, and the sword light actually showed signs of disarray. As the party involved, the 3 people holding the swords were the most shocked. They rode on their swords and used the body and sword as one technique. Before they even got close, their momentum had already risen. Zhuo had clearly just broken the previous 16 people's joint attack. He should have been short of breath. Although he forced himself to use the flying hidden weapon to resist the enemy, he could barely maintain it. How could it be powerful? But the reality was strange. The 3 people couldn't see what kind of small hidden weapon it was. It actually made small holes in the swords in their hands. The soul link that they had immersed themselves in for half their lives also lost its effect. How could the 3 people not be shocked? But the 3 people were also people who had the will to die. They still rushed forward with all their might. They didn't care about the damage to their weapons, and still pounced forward. Their spiritual qi even surged violently. At the same time, more than 30 people fell from the sky one after another. Kami no Su, who was at the top, saw the opportunity. With a long whistle, her white clothes fluttered in the air. She held a sparkling small gong made of unknown material in her hand. She used her spiritual qi as the handle, and her spiritual qi as a hammer. With a boom, she hit the small gong. Immediately, Kami no Su's face turned pale. She had exhausted all her strength. She could only use the space-shaking gong once. Space-shaking gong. It attacked indiscriminately. Boom. Everyone who was affected by the sound of the gong, whether they were in the middle of the battle or those who were waiting outside, all felt a roar in their heads. There were only countless stars in front of their eyes. Their minds fell into a continuous blank. In an instant, they were confused and muddle-headed, unable to think about anything. The whole space was completely shattered. In fact, the spatial cracks even caused countless bloody wounds to appear on the bodies of the people in this space. Fresh blood sprayed in the air like fountains. Zhuo was also disturbed by the sound of the gong. He was confused for a moment. But his body, which had already turned into mist, suddenly became solid. His mind instantly became clear, but he deliberately made it look like his mind was blank. Like the 30 people around him, they all fell down powerlessly. Thin lines of blood also appeared on his body, shooting out in all directions. It seemed that he was also cut by the space cracks. A black light shone brightly. The six-pointed star of the star immortal stone returned and surrounded his body. But because the spiritual connection was interrupted by the sound of the gong, it was like a group of little chicks who were calling for their mother, but were not answered. They flew around in panic like headless flies. Arrow! Kami no Su was overjoyed and roared. According to the original plan, Sha Hun's arrow should have been shot at this time. After all, the space-shaking gong had successfully created a temporary distraction for Zhuo Xiaoduo's spiritual qi. No matter how short this temporary distraction was, it finally appeared. For those who had been waiting for a long time, it was enough. But now at this moment Sha Hun did not shoot. Not only did he not shoot, but he also took a step back. Sha Hun was a smart person. He was thinking about one thing at this moment. When Zhuo Xiaoduo broke through the window, it was obvious that he had made thorough preparations. Based on the Thunder Cat's infatuation with him, it was estimated that he had already revealed the details of everyone on his side. Since he had already taken precautions, then their established plan would most likely not work. He had already rushed out just now. With the cultivation strength he had shown, he had already escaped. Although there were many people on the scene, they still could not catch up with him. Even if there were many sniping points set up outside, everyone knew that those arrangements were useless. They could not stop Zhuo Xiaoduo's footsteps at all. Although the gap just now was only half a second, with Zhuo Xiaoduo's previous performance, how could he not take advantage of it? But Zhuo Xiaoduo did not take advantage of it. Instead, he was intercepted. No, it should be said that he took advantage of it. But there was a strange pause. On the surface, it seemed that he was shocked by the big battle outside the window. But how could Sha Hun believe that? At this moment, he even acted as if his soul had been shaken by Kami no Su's space-shaking gong, that he clearly knew that there was a space-shaking gong. How could he fall for it? Sha Hun was cautious and resourceful. The first thought that came to his mind was that there was a trap. This guy wants to trick me into using my soul-wrenching arrow. Sha Hun did not move forward. Instead, he retreated. Sure enough, when Zhuo Xiaoduo's body fell, he did not get the soul-wrenching arrow that he expected. He was disappointed. Coward! You dare not shoot. Zhuo Xiaoduo was furious. I have been acting for so long, but it turned out to be a one-man show. Suddenly he was filled with anger. The magnificent sword light suddenly spread out, and those Wizard Alliance experts who were truly shaken down by the space-shaking gong were all cut in half by his sword effortlessly. Chapter 980. At this moment, Zhuo Xiaoduo suddenly burst out with all his strength. There was a sudden soft sound, and the magnificent sword light exploded in all directions. But there was another light spot, which went straight to the 9 heavens. It went straight to Kami no Su. After the sword light, there was a string of faint shadows, like a shadow, which was the hexagram of the starry sky eternal stone. The speed of Zhuo Xiaoduo's sword at this moment could be said to be extremely fast, and in a flash, it had already arrived in front of Kami no Su. Kami no Su was at the moment of extreme anger. He was puzzled. We have already agreed that such a good opportunity. Why didn't you, Sha Hun, make your move? In the blink of an eye, Zhuo Xiaoduo's fatal sword light had already arrived in front of him. A cold star went straight to the vital part of his chest. The cat spirit sword, with the speed of chasing stars and lightning, went straight to the vital part of Kami no Su's chest. With a puff, the sword tip had already pierced the vital part of his chest. But the sword tip could not pierce through. A blue water suddenly burst out, and it turned out that Hai Hunshan's sea soul shirt had taken effect, and suppressed the fatal sword. Seeing that he was about to succeed, Zhuo Xiaoduo was not willing to give up. The power of the cat spirit sword suddenly burst out, and the sword power increased by 30%, making a sound like muffled thunder, and it was strong enough to destroy the protective power of the sea soul shirt. There was only a moment of stalemate, and the sea soul shirt was almost torn apart by Zhuo Xiaoduo's tremendous strength. The sword tip pierced Kami no Su, and it was directly pushed out more than 3,000 meters in the air. Crack, 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 Several bones in Kami no Su's chest were broken. At this moment, his internal organs were almost all shattered. With another muffled sound, the sea blue light from the sea soul shirt suddenly flickered, and it was on the verge of collapse. Kami no Su was scared out of his wits. Open! The projection of a divine soul came out of his body, and with a bang, it hit Zhuo with a palm. Kami no Su screamed, and his body rolled out, quickly moving away from Zhuo. However, Zhuo had already grabbed the sky-shaking gong and pulled it hard. Give it to me. The shadow that emerged from Kami no Su's body had a serious face, and its palm hit down. Let go. Zhuo snorted. I've got it. You think I will let it go? I was already at a disadvantage for not being able to attract that soul-wounding arrow. He pulled with his hand, and the sword chi suddenly flashed. It flashed on the wrist of the frantically retreating Shenwu. The sky's sword spirit sword was the sword. The shadows was the sky. The swords was the sky. The hammer was already in his hand, and he swung it with all his might. With a hum, it smashed onto the body of the shadow. The shadow's strength was naturally very strong, but when it came to the power of the divine soul projection, he could only exert a small part of his own power. At this moment, when he rashly collided with the big hammer, he trembled and floated back. The sword light in the void rippled again, and the scattered starry sky eternal stone that was released when he rushed out of the window, just now quickly gathered. The light flashed. Countless forces collided, and the strength overflowed. Kami no Su let out an inhuman scream. Zhuo spat out a mouthful of blood, but the shadow in front of him also retreated abruptly. With a flash of sword light, Zhuo became one with his sword, and with a whoosh he rushed out. When hundreds of people were about to surround him, he rushed out like lightning, broke through the vast white clouds in the sky, and turned into light spots and sped away. The big hammer that suddenly appeared had already been put away. Other than the shadow, no one else had seen it. In his hand was the space-shaking gong that he had just obtained, and Kami no Su's 3 fingers were still tightly clasped on the edge of the space-shaking gong. Zhuo did not mind that it was dirty, and with a flip of his wrist, he directly threw it into the space ring. Until the moment Zhuo left, the surrounding space became dense, and the hundreds of people with the burning body order, who were lying in ambush, finally surrounded the scene. But it was too late. Chase! Someone shouted madly. Countless figures chased desperately, and in all directions, there were also people who desperately turned into flowing light and chased after him. Too strong. Hai Hunshan looked in the direction where Zhuo had left, and cold sweat broke out all over his body. From the moment he came out of the window to the moment Zhuo escaped, the entire duration of the fight was less than 6 seconds. And in this short 6 seconds, the combat power that Zhuo had shown made the top geniuses of the Umno Alliance fall silent. They were shocked, and even trembled a little. Fortunately, you didn't use your soul-wounding arrow. Otherwise, I'm afraid that he would have taken away 2 treasures in a row. Hai Hunshan looked at Sha Hun, who still looked miserable. Sha Hun only felt that his divine soul was in turmoil, and the hand that was holding the soul-wounding arrow was also trembling slightly. Just now, when he was thinking about it, he did not participate in the battle in the end. But the moment Zhuo attacked, he clearly felt a vibration from the depths of his soul. That was a kind of emotional fluctuation of horror. He also clearly felt a monstrous resentment for not using his soul-wounding arrow. It seemed that Zhuo had already regarded the soul-wounding arrow as his own. And Zhuo was especially angry now that his soul-wounding arrow had been taken away by someone else. It was probably this kind of anger, especially at the last moment when Zhuo broke out of the encirclement. He looked at Sha Hun with eyes full of anger and unwillingness. That resentment, even though they were thousands of meters apart, Sha Hun could still feel it clearly. However, Sha Hun could not understand how Zhuo's resentment came about. Is this your thing? Why are you angry? This is my family's treasure, which has been preserved by my family for countless years. Why are you so angry because you didn't get it? Why are you still heartbroken? But he really felt that the soul-wounding arrow was no longer his. That kind of panic went straight to the bottom of his heart. After thinking for a long time, Shahan finally understood. In fact, Zhuxiaoduo's anger and Kami no Su's anger were for the same reason. Why didn't you make a move when the plan had already been set? But the mentality at that time was different. Kami no Su's anger was, if you had acted according to the original plan, wouldn't Zhuxiaoduo be left behind? But Zhuxiaoduo's anger was, if you had acted, wouldn't the soul-wounding arrow be mine? I tried my best to get your plan from the Thunder Cat. But when it came to the last moment, you didn't act according to the plan? How dare you? Well, this was Zhuxiaoduo's anger. Shahan took a deep breath. In this world, there is actually such a weirdo. After listening to Hai Hunshan's words, Shahan took a deep breath and answered after a long time. Fortunately, I didn't act and didn't fall into their trap. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. But you, why didn't you act? At this moment, although Hai Hunshan expressed his understanding and approval of Shahan's decision not to act, he was still puzzled by his overall actions. Just now, everything happened so suddenly. If it was him, he probably wouldn't have thought much about it, and would have acted as soon as he saw the opportunity. That was the plan. I didn't dare. I really didn't dare. Shahan smiled bitterly. If it was any other enemy, my soul-wounding arrow would have killed them immediately. But the enemy was Zhuxiaoduo. The moment I acted, I instinctively thought of another layer. Based on all the information we have, I believe everyone can see that this guy has no bottom line, or even no bottom line. He even disguised himself as a woman, sold his body, and fooled the Thunder Cat. What more despicable and shameless things can he not do? Shahan said. He already knew all our plans through the Thunder Cat. Since he still dared to stay, the only reason is, he is jealous of all our treasures. When he rushed out, he obviously had half a second of time, but he would rather give up that precious half a second and choose to stay and set a trap for the treasures. And in the end, he really took the space-shaking gong away. Shahan sighed. Shahan suddenly felt that Zhuxiaoduo's temperament was somewhat indescribable. What kind of person was he? He could even do something as despicable as cross-dressing as a woman, which was despised by all the experts. Moreover, he was able to make the Thunder Cat, a playboy, fall head over heels for him. This kind of moral integrity, there was really no one else. Shahan thought about it, and felt his scalp tingling. Anyway, if it was him, he wouldn't be able to do it. What's more, he was clearly out of danger, but he would rather risk his life and fall into the trap again, just to create a chance to snatch away a treasure. This kind of greed, to be honest, was enough to make all the young masters of the Umno Alliance gasp in amazement, and feel ashamed of their inferiority. They were even completely speechless. You are really not afraid of death. You would rather die than suffer a loss, trying to take advantage of others. Looking at the young masters who were leading their men to chase after them, Hai Hunshan and Shahan couldn't help but be silent for a long time. Kami no Su's body floated down from the sky. The 3 long tendons on her right hand were drooping, and her facial muscles were twisted in pain. Her whole body was twisted in a weird way. She and Zhuxiaoduo were fighting over the ownership of the sky-shaking gong. In the end, she was cut by Zhuxiaoduo's sword qi, but because she was in a hurry, she didn't cut her fingers. Instead, Zhuxiaoduo used brute force to pull Kami no Su's 3 fingers over. And only then did she break them. The pain of cramping in the truest sense of the word was not something an ordinary person could endure. Kami no Su was in so much pain that her mind was in a daze. Even her body was being pulled out of shape, that the spiritual sense of the elder in her body was smashed by Zhuxiaoduo the moment it appeared. Now it was dissipating bit by bit, gradually disappearing. This was not the worst. The most miserable was the Thunder Cat. The mighty cat was standing in the air in a daze. Her face was lost, and she didn't even have the slightest bit of spirit left in her. Because she found out. Although she now understood that this lady was actually Zhuxiaoduo in disguise. But the Thunder Cat was frightened to find that she couldn't get out. Chapter 981. The Thunder Cat was completely speechless and even frightened. My heart was taken away. Yes, I have played with a lot of women. I am known as a playboy. The number of women who have slept with me is at least a few thousand, if not 10,000. I am very free and easy. After playing with them for a few days, I told them to get lost. This is the first time I have fallen in love with someone. The first time I have fallen in love with someone is actually a man. Even if he is a man dressed as a woman, he is still a man. He left just like that, but The Thundercat suddenly cried loudly in the air. Tears and snot flowed down his cheeks. Because I found out. I still love. Hai Hunshan and Sha Hun came in front of the Thundercat. Looking at the Thundercat's sad face, they couldn't help but be silent for a moment. Then they patted the Thundercat's shoulder and said, Okay, don't be sad. You have sold us all out. But if you are like this, we will not be able to find you for revenge. Fortunately, you still have something to gain. Although Hai Hun Shan's words were a joke, it was also the truth. One must know that Thundercat had revealed all the crucial information to the target of everyone, Zhuo. This was the reason why the situation had changed so drastically. Even if all the blame was placed on Thundercat would have nothing to say. However, until now, the two of them felt that although the Umno Alliance had suffered a great loss, it was still not serious enough to hurt them. Speaking of the one who had suffered the most, it was still the Thundercat who had suffered the most. If the two of them were in the Thundercat's shoes, they would have thought of committing suicide. The Thundercat smiled bitterly and said, It is my fault. It is all my fault. I was blinded by lust. I actually fell head over heels in love with a man. Whether you are wrong or not, it has come to this. Hai Hunshan's ugly face was kind. A man is blinded by love. It is understandable that he has fallen in love with someone for the first time. But the loss you have caused has become a fact. Hai Hunshan said, Let's talk about it later. Sha Hun nodded. Understanding was true. Everyone was a person who rolled in a pile of women. But the usual venting for fun was different from the true feelings of true love. Putting himself in their shoes. If this matter were to fall on him, the degree of the blow to his heart would be unimaginable. However, understanding is one thing. The losses caused by reality are still reality. Naturally, you have to bear the consequences. No matter what your standpoint was, or what your original intentions were, your true feelings had caused the deaths of many people, and delayed the grand plan. Furthermore, Kami no Su's treasure had been lost. These were all things that had to be compensated for. In this regard, your attitude had to be correct. Otherwise, how would he survive in the future? The Thundercat said dejectedly. Understood. I will explain it to my brothers. Sha Hun sighed and said, All right. What the two of us want to ask is, your heavenly lightning mirror hasn't been deceived, right? The two of them couldn't be blamed for having such thoughts. In the Thundercat's current situation, it could be said that even if he lost his life, it would be a very normal thing. Even more, they were deeply surprised that Swordsmanship didn't take away the Thundercat's life. Heavenly lightning mirror. The Thundercat swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and said in a sobbing voice, Just now, it was taken away. She said she wanted to see. Woo woo. Sha Hun and Hai Hunshan looked up at the sky helplessly. This guy, as expected, did not guess wrongly. He actually gave it away. Thundercat. Sha Hun finally couldn't help but say, You can be considered as one of the most despicable, but not romantic men. You don't lack any intelligence, you. In the end, there were still some things that he didn't understand. You, a person who had always treated women as playthings, how could you have such a heavy emotional wound? The Thundercat looked into the distance in a daze. His expression was a mixture of indescribable fear and hopelessness. After a long time he said, Your heart, has it really been moved? Your love, has it really been moved? Have you ever been in love with 1,000 flowers? Hai Hunshan was completely dumbfounded. But, you have been cheated by someone, that person is a man. The Thundercat was speechless. I know. I hate him. I can't wait to tear Zhuo into pieces, and burn his bones into ashes. But I just can't forget his cross-dressing image. Suddenly, he looked up at the sky and sighed. Could it be that I have played with too many women in my life, and am too despicable? That's why I have met with such retribution. meeting such a despicable person, and from then on, it will affect my whole life. Hai Hunshan and Sha Hun were speechless again. These two were extremely smart and ruthless people. How could they not understand that although the Thunder Cat was cursing with certainty, every word was sonorous, but the hatred in his bones was not strong. On the contrary, there was a faint sense of freedom. Faintly, there was a sense of enlightenment. Then the matter of chasing Zhuoshaoduo, will you still participate? Hai Hunshan asked. No. The Thunder Cat smiled bitterly. I have to go home. This time, I have lost my master, lost the family treasure, and caused a lot of losses to everyone. I have become the #1 joke of the 12 families of the Umno Alliance. He looked afar, lost in thought, and after a long time he said, I have to go back to the family to receive my punishment. Besides, today's losses, the losses until now, I will sort them out and send them to my brothers. Also, this time when I go back, I want to find someone and get married. The Thunder Cat smiled. The days spent in the flowers should end. Haha, we have feelings, but we can be hurt. But those women we have been with, how many of them are heartless? This time, it's really my retribution. As for the chase of Zhuoshaoduo, haha, so be it. The Sky Thunder Mirror. I will give it to him as a gift. After saying that, he smiled bitterly, turned around and waved his hand and left. With a whistling sound, he took all the guards of the Lei family and left without looking back. The two of them just looked at the Thunder Cat, the culprit of the failure of the encirclement, leaving without a trace. The two of them sighed to each other. For a moment, they couldn't tell what they were feeling. Hai Hunshan sighed after a long time and said, maybe the Thunder Cat is right. In the future, let's not do this kind of sin in the area of love. What if one day we get this kind of retribution, and the karma is not good? Sha Hun coughed and said, it seems that the Thunder Cat is one step ahead of us, and touched the love barrier. I don't know whether it's a blessing or a curse, and whether we should be happy or worried. Hai Hunshan nodded silently. The love barrier. The two of them had yearned for it. But when it came to the real thing, they were inevitably a little timid. How many high-level warriors in the whole continent had fallen in front of the love barrier? Not to mention others, among the 12 great shamans there were a few. The Astral Souls Continent's king of the right, Yu Dongtian, was unable to pass the love barrier, and stopped as a king. And the king of Zhuolu, Yun Zhonghu, was deeply in love, and could only choose to try to break through with his wife. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to go further alone. Countless powerful warriors had married, and had children, and established families. But who knew that these warriors had never touched the love barrier? What was the love barrier? No one knew where the love came from, but it was deep, and they could never forget it. Even until death, they would still be brooding about it. This was the love barrier. Many powerful warriors were known to have broken the hearts of countless women in their lives. They seemed to be free and unrestrained, and didn't care about anything. But once these people met a woman who fell in love with them at first sight, they didn't even dare to have any contact with her, and turned away. Then they used endless years and regrets to kill their feelings. Because once the love barrier was crossed, it would be a lifetime. It was either transcendence or depravity. There was never a third possibility. Who could be sure that they could transcend from such feelings that seeped into their bones and souls? No one could be absolutely sure. Since ancient times, those who could transcend the love barrier were either heartless people with a heart of stone, or lovers who would never change until death. If they were like ordinary people who only had a few decades of life, the so-called love barrier was insignificant. If they couldn't pass the love barrier, it would at most be a few decades of wasted time, and in the blink of an eye. But powerful warriors with profound cultivation, how long would their lifespan be? Once their love was moved, it would last forever. Among them, there were many examples. The non-poisonous shaman was poisoned to death because of his wife. After that, he swore to take revenge, and called himself non-poisonous. His original intention was to exterminate the poison-using family. However, after he took revenge, he devoted his whole life to the study of poisons. Although he became a great shaman because of this, but similar examples included the Great Ice Great Shaman, Great Shaman Dan Kong, Emperor Zhaixing, and the demon ancestor of astral souls. It's easy to enter the love barrier, but difficult to get out. Sha Han sighed softly and said, "Actually, speaking of the love barrier, I really envy the sky inspecting throne of astral souls. For so many years, they're probably the only exception." Hai Hunshan sighed. "Do you think the Thunder Cat will be able to get out of the love barrier this time?" Sha Han squinted his eyes and couldn't help but laugh. But he sighed again. To let him meet such a weirdo, it's really difficult. Hai Hunshan was also annoyed and amused at the same time. But then again, his love barrier this time is completely hopeless. Not only is he an enemy, but he is also a man. It's a joke to say that he will never change his mind. But to say that his heart is as hard as steel, and he will definitely turn his back on him. Ha 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 ha. Damn it. If the Thunder Cat can get out of the love barrier in the end, the curse of love will be broken. Sha Han said thoughtfully. This kid will be a blessing in disguise. He will have a bright future. But the premise is that he has to kill Zhuo with his own hands and completely cut off the love barrier. Only then will he be able to fulfill his wish. The love barrier is hard to overcome. It's not just a saying. That's right. They have all gone to chase after Zhuo. Let's go after them too. Okay. Speaking of which, why did you stay for so long? Then why did you stay for so long too? The two of them smiled bitterly at each other, and they had a tacit understanding. Chapter 982. The reason why they had stayed for so long was actually very simple. Both of them were the smartest among the smartest. They were the type who could infer many things from one instance and see 3 steps before taking a step. Now that they had seen Zhuo's true battle prowess at such a close distance, they were no longer confident that the men they brought with them would be able to keep Zhuo here. The most obvious reason was that this guy had too many trump cards in his hands. His battle strength was beyond their imagination. When Kami no Su was ambushed and the sky-shaking gong was taken away, not only was the sea soul gown destroyed in an instant, but the divine sense protection on his body was also affected. However, Kami no Su still suffered considerable injuries. This could only mean that even the divine sense protection was forced back, or even destroyed by Zhuo. Zhuo's strength was evident. This place was still within the Umno alliance. It would be difficult for Zhuo to escape, but with only their men, there was no effective way to stop him, let alone kill him. Now, they had to rely on the army. In the past they did not feel it, but now they realized that the restriction of the human debt order was too great. Above the sky realm, they could not attack, and Zhuo's true battle strength was obviously beyond the average sky realm master. Previously, the two of them could only watch helplessly as more than 10 experts at the pinnacle of the Guixian realm were killed by a single sword strike. How could they fight? Even if they were shocked by the sky-shaking gong's attack, Zhuo was able to recover faster than so many experts at the pinnacle of the Guixian realm. This was his ability. What's more, when Zhuo had just charged out, he had encountered the encirclement of 16 origin returning realm experts. Moreover, they were all prepared to die and had already activated their true chi, ready to self-destruct at any time. Even if they were not as professional as the Burning Body Order, their battle prowess at that time was still far superior to normal. However, the sound of seeking death was enough to intimidate most people. Sha Han and Sea Spirit Robe knew that if they were the ones involved, it would be extremely difficult for them to escape from the encirclement of these 16 people. However, the reality was that Zhuo had first attacked them with hidden weapons, and then repelled them with his majestic spiritual energy. Hidden weapons had never caught the attention of high-level cultivators. However, in the hands of Zhuo, they still showed their brilliance. He had clearly just entered the royal god realm. This kind of combat power made Sha Han tremble with fear. He even felt a sense of fear before the battle. And this fear before the battle was also partly reflected in the fact that the soul-wounding arrow did not attack according to the established plan. It was true that he had a clear understanding of Wuxiao's true intentions and gave up on attacking. However, it was not without the element of fear that Wuxiao would backfire on him. Big Brother Hai, dare I ask, when you were breaking through to the returning profound realm, how many times did you suppress the agitation of your true essence? Shahan asked Hai Hunshan. At the 9th time, it was the most difficult, because at that time, it was said that 9 times was the limit. But there were also some who said that it was possible to break through 9 times. Hai Hunshan said, so after the 9th time, I endured and did not break through. My father and the 3 elders continuously guarded me for 3 months. I persisted until the 12th time, when I was sure that I had reached the limit and could not continue. Only then did I break through to the returning profound realm. Shahan nodded silently. I did suppress 11 times, but the family said that it was 9 times. But with our current combat power, at the peak of the returning profound realm, how are we compared to this Wuxiao, who has just broken through to the royal god realm? Shahan asked in a low voice. Far inferior. Hai Hunshan shook his head repeatedly. We are not even on the same level. Now I even dare not attack him alone. When he said this, Hai Hunshan's tone was full of helplessness. Then, how many times should Wuxiao have suppressed the agitation of his vital essence? Shahan asked closely. This was the fundamental reason why Wuxiao was so powerful. Shahan was already an outstanding rising star of the Umno Alliance family. His own strength was far superior to his peers. Facing Wuxiao, who was a whole level lower than them, not only felt inferior, but also did not dare to fight with him. Then how deep was Wuxiao's foundation? What level was it? Then the two fell into silence at the same time. After a long time, Hai Hunshan said, at least, more than 25 times. Shahan nodded slowly. At least. But Wuxiao's aptitude, how is it so much higher than ours? Even compared to the countless geniuses since ancient times. He was so much stronger. What's the reason? It's inexplicable. Shahan asked. Hai Hunshan furrowed his brows. Even geniuses with full astral souls or primordial souls wouldn't be able to reach such a level. There must be some sort of fortuitous encounter. That's right. Shahan said. Well, there's another possibility. In the legends, those legendary figures who were born with the fortune of heaven and earth were favored by heaven and earth. They were blessed by heaven and earth, and their foundation was naturally formed. It's said that back then, the Dragon Emperor, Demon Emperor, Sorcerer Ancestor, and the others were all favored by heaven and earth. And before their fortune, such as the Dragon Bloodline, Phoenix Bloodline, Demon Bloodline, and so on burst out, they would be stuck at a stage. They kept cultivating and suppressing it again and again. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't break through. In fact, heaven and earth were suppressing it for them, helping them to cultivate and strengthen their foundation. In the process, they didn't feel much pain. And it's completely different from us suppressing the restlessness of our true yuan. Shahan said, have you heard of this legend? Hai Hunshan's expression changed. You're saying that Wuxiao is also? Even if he isn't, I'm afraid it's almost the same. Of course, it's also possible that he obtained some kind of spiritual treasure. Shahan said, it can also achieve the same effect. For example, the Khanate Gourd, Huahuang Sword, Donghuang's Bell, and other such legendary items. Hai Hunshan. Shahan said softly as they hurried. Don't take it lightly and think that I'm exaggerating. I'll tell you the most accurate thing. I wasn't interested in killing Wuxiao from the beginning. What really interested me was the secret on Wuxiao. That's the real purpose of my trip. He turned to look at Hai Hunshan. Brother Hai, don't tell me that you're only doing this to gain merit. That will only make me look down on you. Hai Hunshan laughed dryly and said, that's for sure. However, from the looks of it, we might not have a chance. Shahan smiled bitterly. If we had a chance, how would we have this conversation? Both of them sighed at the same time. It had to be said that Shahan's words were all true, the absolute truth. If they had a chance, why would they have a heart-to-heart talk? They could just hold it in and do it themselves. Brother Hai, let's work together, Shahan said. Haven't we always been working together? Hai Hunshan frowned. Don't play dumb with me. I'm talking about working together in the truest sense. Sha Hun said seriously. It's only limited to the two of us working together, not the two families working together. Hai Hunshan thought carefully for a long time and said, even if we work together, the chances are still not high. In any aspect. I understand what you mean. Think about it. I have an idea. Sha Hun didn't say it out loud, but communicated with him telepathically. Hai Hunshan listened calmly and kept nodding his head in silence. As time passed, the frequency of their communication became faster and faster. The guards behind them followed silently. However, it was undeniable that everyone's thoughts had quietly changed. At this moment, the thought of capturing Zhuo to make a name for himself could not be said to be non-existent, but it was already very faint. On the other side, Zhuo was still running away. Along the way, he was reflecting on himself. No, this won't do, I'm too greedy. I must change my temper, I must change it. This time, if I had chosen to run away honestly, there wouldn't be so many consequences. Why did I want to get 2 more treasures, even disregarding my life? This won't do. If I had escaped directly at that time, I would have only needed to throw out a bit of laurel honey at the right time to attract the pursuers to the greatest extent, and then create some illusions, and then hide in the space-destroying tower to lie low for a while. What a perfect situation. But I had to find trouble for myself. If it was just to get rid of the pursuers behind him, it would be a piece of cake for Zhuo. A few Tianyuan teleportations would be enough to achieve the effect. However, it was almost impossible for the current Zhuo to avoid the divine thoughts of those experts in the sky. Although he could hide in the space-destroying tower and be safe for the time being, he would expose one of his trump cards directly, and there would be countless hidden dangers in the future. The enemy only needed to lock onto this area, and then send an army to besiege him. Then he would really be dead. After all, the space-destroying tower could not move by itself. Where he disappeared from, he would still be at the same place when he reappeared. If the enemy knew about this, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, the only thing Zhuo could do now was to run as fast as he could, wholeheartedly running away. However, he was in the territory of the Wizard Alliance after all. There were enemies everywhere. His location had been transmitted in a completely transparent manner. In just a few hundred miles, he had already encountered 7 to 8 battles. Although these interceptions and battles at this level couldn't cause him any harm, they couldn't even stop him from moving forward. However, Zhuo knew that his situation was getting more and more dangerous. Once the encirclement was successful, even if he did not have the heaven-mending stone, he would be exhausted to death here. No matter how invincible he was in the same realm, and no matter how invincible he was in the sky realm, could he fight the entire Umno Alliance by himself for a moment? That was absolutely impossible. Not to mention that there was still the burning body order, the trump card against him. It's all because of your greedy personality that the current situation is so bad. Zhuo was so regretful that his intestines turned green. He slapped himself hard on the mouth. He only thought that he could not fight when he was in the sky realm. But this was of no help to the current situation. Why can't I move my legs when I hear about treasures? How many times have I reminded myself? Why can't I learn from my mistakes? With your greedy personality, you will suffer a big loss sooner or later. Zhuo's tears were flowing, and he regretted it as he ran. Zhuo was very clear about his personality, but he had never encountered any real danger. Zhao's greed was also to strengthen his foundation. Therefore, Zhuo did not take it to heart, and reminded himself many times to change. However, when there were benefits, he still could not control himself. Growing up in an ordinary family, Zhuo had a natural stinginess and greed, and his possessiveness for money and resources was incomparably huge. However, this time, because of his greed, he directly put himself in a situation where he would die. Zhuo deeply knew that he had to change. If he could return alive this time, this problem of greed must be corrected. I can be greedy. However, there was a prerequisite, and that was, I cannot let greed threaten my life. Otherwise I have to give up. As long as I can return alive, I won't dare to be so greedy anymore. Zhuo swore bitterly. This was another growth for Zhuo, but this growth was in exchange for a desperate situation. The transformation of his temperament could not change the current bad situation. The entire land was the enemy's territory, thousands of miles away, and there was no help. Above the sky, the Strong's divine consciousness was monitoring. Zhuo was a little confused. What should I do? High up in the sky, Lei Changtian obviously also noticed the awkward situation his grandson was in. He was also speechless about this. Obviously, everyone who saw Zhuo's personality was aware of it, and they trembled with fear. Greed. Too greedy. Now it was obvious that although Zhuo was still running for his life, he was already in a desperate situation. The entire Umno Alliance land was like a huge prison. Millions of experts were gathered here. Even if Zhuo had the ability to reach the heavens, it would be difficult for him to escape from such a situation. Lei Changtian now had the urge to go down and take his grandson away. It seemed that things had come to this point. This kid's ability to cause trouble was too strong. Flying heavens and above were not allowed to attack. But the other party's instructions through telepathy were both against the rules. What evidence do you have to prove that I attacked? I didn't attack, I just moved my mouth at most. If I don't attack, it'll be bad. Lei Changtian took a deep breath and prepared to fly down, grab him, and fly away. He would tear the space apart and return to the Sun-Moon Pass in a few seconds. Just as Lei Changtian was about to fly down, suddenly, a black cloud rolled up from the horizon, blowing towards them like a hurricane. Its speed was extremely fast. A wild laugh came from afar. Ha 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 ha. It's my turn now, ha ha. On the edge of the black cloud, there were layers of yellow halos that flickered unpredictably. Lei Changtian was completely stunned, and his expression changed instantly. In the blink of an eye, that black cloud passed by everyone and arrived in front of the void where Lei Changtian was hiding. It cackled weirdly. What is this? What is this naughty kid trying to do? Chapter 983. At this moment, Lei Changtian felt chills all over his body, and a chill went straight to his heart. No poison. It turned out that the no-poison shaman was here. He had gone too far. Looking at the world today, there were no more than 3 people who could make Lei Changtian, the patriarch of diabolism, feel fear and retreat. The first was the Flood Witch. Lei Changtian wanted to kill the Flood Witch even in his dreams. Until now, when he dreamed about his 36 brothers dying in the hands of the Flood Witch, Lei Changtian was so angry that his teeth hurt. However, Lei Changtian also knew that even if he spent his whole life, he would never be able to kill the Flood Witch with his real strength. The best result might be to take her away with him by self-detonation. The second was Zhuo. This guy's strength was far above Lei Changtian's, and he was as unrivaled as the Flood Witch. However, the main reason that made Lei Changtian retreat was that this guy had stolen his daughter's heart. He suddenly turned from a little brother to a cheap father-in-law. He was Zhuo's real father-in-law. How was that cheap? In short, he just didn't like this Zhuo. What could he do? Therefore, although Zhuo didn't dare to meet him, he was also very unwilling to meet him. He was embarrassed. He was embarrassed too. The third person that Lei Changtian didn't like and had to retreat was not Taoist Lei of the Tao League, nor was it Emperor Zhai Xing of the Astral Souls, nor the other 7 swords of Taoism, Ice Ming, or other great shamans. It was the no-poison shaman in front of him. Lei Changtian was even more afraid of this person than the Flood Witch and Zhuo of the Sky Inspecting Throne. Today, if there were no significant changes, even if the Flood Witch bumped into Lei Changtian, she wouldn't fight with him. Her life was rarely in danger. Zhuo was his son-in-law, and he was more embarrassed than anything else, especially now that he had given birth to a grandson. What could they do if they really met? Could it be awkward? Only the no-poison shaman was the one that really gave Lei Changtian a headache. This guy was full of poison, and it was impossible not to hate him. He tilted his head and looked down. His divine thoughts could still feel that Zhuoxiaoduo was constantly fleeing. Lei Changtian's move was naturally to take a risk. He pulled Zhuoxiaoduo and left directly. Now that the no-poison shaman was here, the situation had changed. If he didn't leave now, when would he leave? However, with this move, the black fog around the no-poison shaman suddenly increased by dozens of times. The dense fog rose and spread out for 10,000 meters, like a black cloud covering the sky. Obviously, he understood Lei Changtian's intention and made a corresponding move. If Lei Changtian acted rashly, he would naturally act too. Then, the no-poison shaman's gloomy voice was heard. "Brother Devil, what are you looking at?" Lei Changtian took a deep breath and said, "No poison shaman, long time no see. I didn't expect that with your status, you would come for such a small matter. It really surprised me." The no-poison shaman said lightly, "The devil ancestor has graced the Umno alliance with his presence. If no one at the level of a great shaman came to accompany him, it would be rude of the Umno alliance. Why? Is the devil ancestor not willing to drink tea with me? Talk. I have nothing to talk about with you. Not interested. But I am very interested in talking with you. We can talk through the night, and for a long time." The veins on Lei Changtian's forehead bulged. "No poison shaman, you want to stop me? What do you want to do?" The no poison shaman narrowed his eyes. "You want to take that kid away?" Lei Changtian's long hair fluttered in the air. He said word by word, "What?" The no poison shaman said lightly, "Seeing you here proves that you are the initiator of this game. Now that the game is about to start, how can it end halfway? If you really interfere, I will immediately poison him to death. Do you think your actions are faster, or my poison is more poisonous?" He looked into Lei Changtian's eyes and said word by word, "Do you want to try? I bet my poison is more poisonous." Lei Changtian smiled coldly. "You bet that you don't dare to do it." The no-poison shaman said, "I don't dare to do it? You mean this kid's identity? Isn't this kid Zhuoxiaoduo's son? In other words, your grandson?" "He, the son of the Sky Surveyor Minister and Rain Demon, the grandson of the demon ancestor, the king of Zhuelu and Yun Zhonghu's Jr., the heavenly king of the right, Yu Dongtian's family friend, the nephew of the star-plucking emperor. He. Sure enough, he has a good background. But are you sure that I don't dare to do it?" This guy actually knew everything. Lei Changtian felt a chill run down his spine. "Since you know my nephew's background, you should know that if you poison him, you will be in big trouble." The no-poison shaman said faintly, "You are wrong about one thing. Now the follow-up of this matter, my actions do not depend on me but on you. As long as you do it, I will do it. Even if everyone in the world is afraid of the Sky Surveyor Minister's Wuchangzong, I am not afraid. I will take any revenge. Guess if I run to the Astral Soul's continent to release poison and plague, who can do anything to me? Boss Flood is very powerful, but he cares about the big picture. So he has a lot of scruples. But I, the no-poison shaman, always have no taboos, because the so-called big picture is never in my eyes." The no-poison shaman said coldly, "Those juniors don't know that you are behind them. You threw your grandson to our Umno alliance to gain experience. It seems like you are putting him to death. If he doesn't have a shocking breakthrough, he will die. But in fact, with you as a backup, how can those juniors do anything to him? But if you want to gain experience for your grandson, you shouldn't use the lives of millions of us to gain experience. Now that you don't want to gain experience, you want to take people and leave just like that? Is there such a good thing in the world?" Lei Changtian smiled faintly and said, "What if I say it is so easy?" His whole body was surrounded by black light, and he was ready to fight to the death. No matter what, his grandson could not die here. Even if he had to die, this time, he had gone too far. But his grandson could not die no matter what. "No poison shaman, if I drag you to die with me, what are your chances of survival?" Lei Changtian's aura continued to rise with an unprecedented craziness, and a hysterical aura spread out. Even though the no-poison shaman was the most lawless person in the world, but facing the demon ancestor's attitude of risking his life, his heart suddenly felt weak. The no-poison shaman suddenly laughed strangely. Old demon, the game you are leading has already started. You must play to the end. So far, our side has never violated the rules, and has not sent any cultivators above the sky realm to participate in this battle. We have always abided by the rules of the human favor writ. But now, if you act rashly and end this battle, you will be breaking the rules. I may not be able to stop you alone, but you can only hide for a while. When the flood boss comes out, he will naturally seek justice. Previously, the Tao League broke the rules of the human favor writ, and a heavenly king died. Guess who will be unlucky if you break the rules this time? Lei Changtian's face suddenly changed. The no-poison shaman was right. If he forcefully took Zhou Xiaoduo away, it would indeed be breaking the rules. And it would be breaking the rules in front of the no-poison shaman. There was no way to hide it, and the flood which would definitely hold him responsible after the matter. As the saying goes, it is better to be known than seen. As long as he was not seen or caught with his own hands, there would be room to maneuver. But now, it was already seen by everyone. Even if he could escape for a while, how would he settle it after the matter was over? At this time another voice said gloomily, I bet that even if the old devil breaks the rules, he won't be able to leave today. Who dares to bet with me? Then, a third voice also sounded. And me. I also bet that the old devil won't be able to leave today. At least, he won't be able to leave with his nephew. Hearing the sudden sound, Lei Changtian's face suddenly turned as white as snow. The Zhumang Grand Shaman. The West Sea Grand Shaman. At this moment, it was actually the 3 Grand Shamans of the Umno Alliance who came together and trapped him in a triangular formation. If Lei Changtian was alone here, even if he was surrounded by the 3 Grand Shamans, he would only need to pay a small price to escape. It would not be difficult. But to escape with Zhou Xiaoduo and ensure Zhou Xiaoduo's personal safety was something that he could not do no matter what. At this moment, the 3 Grand Shamans came together and moved together. Even if Lei Changtian was the demon ancestor, he knew that he was definitely not a match for these 3 people. In the whole world, there were at most 3 people who could face these 3 people at the same time, and not be at a disadvantage: the Sky Patrol Minister, the Flood Witch, and at most the number 1 person in the Tao League, Taoist Thunder. But this definitely did not include the demon ancestor. Even if he really risked his life, or even self-destructed, it was impossible for him to take these 3 people away, let alone escape with Zhou Xiaoduo. The other 2 could kill Zhou Xiaoduo 10,000 times, as long as any one of the 3 entangled him and created a gap for him. I've been running rampant for my whole life. Could it be that when I'm old, I'll actually trap my nephew with my own hands? Lei Changtian's heart was frying. What do you want? Lei Changtian took a deep breath and said, Draw a line. The West Sea Grand Shaman said lightly, What do we want? We didn't want to do anything from the beginning to the end. Just let this game go on. Just like your original plan, let your grandson Zhou Xiaoduo escape to the Sun Moon Pass with his own strength. Isn't this your requirement for him to gain experience, isn't it? The West Sea Grand Shaman said jokingly. In that case, we won't make a move. We'll just drink tea and watch. Let the people below decide the winner and loser based on their own abilities. If he dies here, we'll allow you to take away his corpse. If he manages to escape, we will not violate the rules and attack him. This is a token to protect our relationship with Boss Flood. It can also be considered as helping you complete the Gu rearing plan. Other than saying that your nephew is awesome, we will not pursue the matter of the shaman's dying. He looked at Lei Changtian with a faint smile. What do you think? Bullshit. How can he fight against all the martial artists below the sky realm on your continent? Lei Changtian was furious. Then who told you to throw him over? The Zhumang Grand Shaman laughed. Chapter 984. That is to say, you must kill him here? Lei Changtian's eyes were bloodshot, and his eyes were about to crack. Hey brother Lei, what are you talking about? This is what you did. We're just cooperating with you to train him. Zhumang Great Witch smiled, full of schadenfreude. It's rare that you have so much confidence in your grandson. We also want to witness the first person of the new generation of the astral souls. What kind of style is he? Will he soar into the sky and rise to the 9 heavens? Or will his legend come to an end? West Sea Great Witch said, Brother Lei, do you know? Right now, we are all waiting and hoping that your grandson will be able to fight his way out with his own strength. This is a miracle, a legend that can be recorded in history. Although the words of the West Sea Grand Shaman were filled with mockery and schadenfreude, there was still some truth in his words. There was no other reason. If Swordsmanship could really fight his way out from here, it would really be an unprecedented achievement. It would also prove that in the future, he would definitely surpass the Flood Witch's existence and officially rise. As a warrior, it was also a precious life experience to be able to witness the rise of such a peerless figure. Not to mention, this existence that might rise was like a child in the palm at this moment, and it was easy to kill him. Lei Changtian's internal organs were burning, and he was helpless. He had already secretly sent out the soul-suppressing divine sense, wanting to summon reinforcements. However, his actions were like a clay ox entering the sea, and there was no response. Brother Lei, give up. Poisonous Great Witch smiled faintly. Now, in all the range that you can see, you've fallen into the restriction of my burning soul sector. Also, I've also launched the chaotic divine sense. Zhu Meng Great Witch said faintly. Even if Brother Lei's divine sense can escape the poisonous burning soul sector, I don't know where it has been sent to at this moment. In short, it won't reach the ears of the people you want to inform. Lei Changtian's body began to tremble faintly, and his chest rose and fell. Just today, there was a big explosion at the network hub, and the network was paralyzed for a long time. Since your nephew's incident happened, all internet connections to astral souls have been cut off. Furthermore, the frontline troops have also begun to attack the Sun-Moon Pass with all their might. The great shaman Zhu Meng said, the Sun-Moon Pass is currently fighting a team from the Tao League. The soldiers belonging to the astral souls have already retreated to recuperate. Even if the news spread, do you think the Tao League will easily send the high-level combat power of the astral souls to help? Countless coincidences are happening at this moment. Everything is pointing in the direction that is most disadvantageous to you. This might be the will of the heavens, Brother Devil. Heavens will my ass. Heavens will has allowed my nephew to rise in the Umno Alliance. Lei Changtian was furious. Brother Devil, it's rare for us to meet each other. Why do you have to hurt me and kill me? Since you have nothing to do, why don't the 3 of us accompany you to drink tea and chat until we can either witness the birth of a miracle or witness the fall of a genius? The 3 of us know that Brother Devil is completely disheartened and wants to fight with his life on the line. But if you fight with your life on the line now, not to mention that the chances of winning are slim, the timing is also not right. It is too early. After all, your grandson is not dead yet. What if there is a miracle? Brother Devil, what do you say? When your grandson is really going to die, it's not too late for you to fight desperately. Don't you think so? Besides, if you fight, you will break the token of favor. Of course, we will fight as well. However, it's not considered breaking the rules. After all, you are the one who planned and attacked first. The great shaman of the West Sea was full of kindness. He kept saying that he was thinking for Lei Changtian. The demon ancestor Lei Changtian took a deep breath and said coldly, Fine, fine, fine. Let us wait and see. Witness the birth of a miracle. In his heart, he still had a glimmer of hope. Swordsmanship was a heaven-defying monstrous genius that surpassed his peers. He even surpassed those who were 1 or 2 levels higher than him. He was not just an ordinary genius. As long as those below the flying heavens didn't fight, this kid was really invincible. He might have a chance to escape. Although the hope was slim, there was still a little bit of hope. As the great shaman of Zhu Meng said, it was really too early to fight desperately. If he couldn't control himself and made the first move, his own life and death would be secondary. He was afraid that he would trigger the killing intent of Wu Du and the other 2 great shamans. Once they attacked Swordsmanship, then his grandson would truly have no hope. Brother Devil, please. The great shaman of the West Sea took out a tea set from the space and started to brew tea to entertain them. His movements were very leisurely. The three great shamans sat cross-legged. Their expressions were carefree and relaxed. The demon ancestor Lei Changtian took a deep breath. His expression suddenly became extremely calm. He sat cross-legged and even smiled faintly. He picked up a cup of tea and said, "I don't need to say it. The three of you understand. In a while, if we are really in a life or death situation, we might go to hell together. Or we might be separated by life and death. After a lifetime of fighting, today is finally here. I toast the three of you. I hope we can be enemies again in the next life." The three great shamans straightened their backs at the same time. They picked up their teacups and said solemnly, "Yes to Brother Devil." If it really comes to this point, then the three of us sincerely wish Brother Devil a successful life and a smooth journey. Lei Changtian laughed and drank the cup in one gulp. The three great shamans each took a side and drank the cup. In the sky, the four people's auras were secretly attracted. Wind and thunder were faintly heard in all directions. In a secret space inside the continent of astral souls, the power of the divine consciousness that was almost condensed into a substance had already completely sealed this space. Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding were sitting in it at this moment. However, each of them still had two complete divine consciousnesses wandering in the air. As they wandered, they chased each other. However, there was also a delicate and slow fusion. The divine consciousnesses were communicating and talking non-stop. It became more and more intensive, and became a continuous murmuring sound. It was like the chanting of the Buddhas in the Western world. In this space, it surged back and forth violently. That was the perfect fusion of the origin primordial spirit and the second primordial spirit. It was like a person who lived a complete life in this world and a complete life in another world. The divine consciousnesses of different experiences in these two worlds had to complete the fusion before the person's consciousness could be considered complete again. In the beginning, the origin primordial spirit and the second primordial spirit were different existences. Even if their essence was the same, it was difficult for them to merge. There were three people here: the origin primordial spirit, the second primordial spirit, and the original physical body. But now both the origin primordial spirit and the second primordial spirit had turned into almost illusory existences. A considerable part of them was slowly fusing into the original physical body that had been sitting in the lotus position all this time. Now it was the most critical moment. Once the fusion started, it could not be stopped. Outside, Yu Xingchen, the star-plucking monarch, was personally guarding the place. In the beginning, he could still check the situation of the continent. However, at this critical moment, Yu Xingchen did not dare to leave even a single step. This was really the most critical moment. This was the moment when the Zhuo couple was the most vulnerable and most afraid of being disturbed. In fact, when the Zhuo couple was in seclusion, even Yu Xingchen did not know where they were. He was only summoned by their divine consciousnesses at the most critical moment. The responsibility of guarding the place was undoubtedly great. As long as the two of them could successfully come out of seclusion, it would be the time when the astral souls would truly rise to power. From then on, they would not have to worry about facing any enemy. This was too important for the astral souls. They could not afford any mishaps. News from the front line came in little by little. The UMNO Alliance has launched a large-scale attack. The Tao Alliance's army has just arrived. They've gone to the front line. Don't trust the Tao Alliance's combat power too much. We must be prepared to support them at any time. The UMNO Alliance's attack is fierce? Be careful. All information transmission has been blocked? The UMNO Alliance has fallen into a state of no communication? How is this possible? Something doesn't seem right. Yu Xingchen felt that something was wrong. Investigate carefully and confirm the situation. The UMNO Alliance needs to transmit information themselves. They can't rely on manpower to do so. There must be a reason for this situation to suddenly happen. Even if there's a malfunction, it can't be so easily cut off. I heard that one of the UMNO Alliance's central hubs was blown up due to some unforeseen event. Even the central hubs in various places have experienced a series of explosions. The UMNO alliance probably suspects that our people caused the destruction, so their offensive is unusually fierce. They suspect that it's a retaliatory war. The Tao Alliance's first wave of troops has already been defeated. The second and third waves are all pressing forward. They're in the midst of a fierce battle. We want to support them, but the Tao Alliance's Jade Sword Heavenly King seems to be angry because the battle is not going well. He refused to accept our request to fight together. He just wants us to wait for an opportunity. Monarch Zhai Xing read through the news and did not feel that anything was wrong. After all, the UMNO Alliance's inland had been destroyed. It was understandable that the front lines were in a frenzy. Speaking of all communications being cut off, this was a heaven-sent opportunity for the astral souls. If communications were cut off, the command system would not be too smooth, right? If they fought now, what advantage could the UMNO Alliance have? As for the Tao Alliance's Jade Sword Heavenly King's anger, it was more understandable. The astral souls had been fighting for tens of thousands of years and had achieved great results. How could the Tao Alliance be defeated just like that? This Jade Sword Heavenly King's self-esteem must have been hurt, right? Yu Xingchen felt a sense of schadenfreude. You haven't been on the battlefield for many years. Now that you're here, you're at a disadvantage, right? Who asked you to shut the door and act all high and mighty like a big shot that you're not convinced? Now it's your turn. Feel the pressure we've been enduring for countless years. Pay close attention to the battle situation. Don't let it become a landslide. If there are signs of a retreat, we'd rather destroy the Tao Alliance's defeated troops. Understood? Chapter 985. Further behind, Li Chenglong, Long Yusheng, and the rest were still making use of the time to train and improve themselves. They were trying their best to digest the resources they had obtained during this period of time. Everyone's combat power was increasing by leaps and bounds. This included Yu Yan-er, who was the weakest previously. Now, even if she were to fight against Meng Zhongjun, Hao Han, and the rest, she would not be at a disadvantage. The gap between the students was gradually widening. Regarding this situation, Wen Xingtian, Yi Chongqing, and the rest were a little regretful. However, there was nothing they could do. They knew that in the process of a genius growth, there would be different opportunities. On the path of a genius, there were often very few peers. Among those who started together, there would inevitably be countless people who would gradually fall behind. This was something that could not be helped. Compared to Meng Zhongjun, Hao Han, and the rest who could not keep up with Li Chenglong and the rest, the other girl, Zhen Piapiao, although her cultivation speed was not as fast as Li Chenglong and the rest, she was not too far behind. At least, she was still in the range of catching up. What was even more amazing was that this girl was so hardworking in her cultivation. It had really reached a level that made all men feel ashamed. Every day, she would cultivate and fight in the most extreme and desperate manner. Her experience was filled with extremely dangerous missions. She was constantly going out and fighting. The number of injuries on her body increased one after another, and her aura grew sharper and sharper. When she first entered the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School, she had the appearance of a delicate young lady from a big family. It was completely gone. What replaced it was a kind of silent sharpness that was unstoppable. Her attitude towards others was also becoming more and more indifferent. She cultivated from day to night, really risking her life to improve. Every night, she even directly used meditation to replace sleep. She allowed her body's meridians to always be in a state of high-intensity absorption of spiritual energy. And the reason why she did this was because of one sentence. You will be left behind. Once you are left behind, you will never be able to see it again. Therefore, Zhen Piapiao risked her life to catch up. She did not want to be left behind. Once she was left behind, she would never be able to catch up again. That night, Zhen Piapiao hesitantly took the cultivation resources from Gao Qiao. There was also an exquisite little bottle with 2 drops of a special substance in it. It was a dream product that had been extinct for countless years, laurel honey. It was truly something that was hard to find in the heavens, hard to find in the mortal world. something that couldn't be bought no matter how much money one spent. Finally, Zhen Piapiao couldn't help but ask, Sister Qiao, why are you helping me like this? This question had been hovering in Zhen Piapiao's heart for a long time. Gao Qiao, as a new upstart in Fenghai City, was a real power figure even in the Zhuoxiaoduo group. She was second only to Li Chenglong, the second person in the Zhuoxiaoduo group. Why did she have to take care of him? Secret manuals, combat techniques, movement techniques, resources. They were all generously provided to him. As long as Gao Qiao had it, she would share it with Zhen Piapiao. Zhen Piapiao had never understood. Why did Gao Qiao do this? If Gao Qiao was a man, she might suspect Gao Qiao's motive. Was Gao Qiao pursuing her? But Gao Qiao was a woman. Moreover, even if a man pursued her, to be able to give her 2 drops of laurel honey at one time was too generous. Zhen Piapiao felt that she couldn't repay such a favor. Today, at this moment, she finally asked this question that had been hovering in her heart for a long time. Why did you do this? Gao Qiao was obviously stunned by this reasonable and expected question. After thinking for a long time, Gao Qiao finally showed a bitter smile and said faintly, Perhaps I don't want myself to be so lonely. Don't want herself to be lonely? Was she lonely? Was she lonely? Zhen Piapiao had never found Gao Qiao lonely. On the contrary, Gao Qiao lived every day to the fullest. Just like her, there was almost no time for rest. She didn't fully understand this sentence, but Gao Qiao obviously didn't want to say anything more, so this exchange could only be stopped here. Thank you, Sister Qiao. Come on. No matter what, don't stop cultivating. Work hard to catch up with us. Work hard to keep up with us. Gao Qiao encouraged. Understood. Zhen Piapiao took a deep breath. I've already broken through to the God-reigning realm and suppressed it 9 times. Her eyes were shining. Sister Qiao, I won't fall too far behind. Keep up the good work. At the shore of Black Water, Yu Moyan rushed forward with his sword, beheading a king-level demonic beast with one strike. The dense evil aura overflowing from the sword was almost condensed into a substance. Murderous aura. Yu Moyan cultivated the cultivation method that he had just obtained. He only felt that the evil aura in his heart was getting stronger and stronger, more and more agitated. It was as if it had risen to the point where he craved to immediately throw himself into the battlefield and crazily fight and kill at any time. It seemed that only the passing of life and the splashing of blood could make him truly excited. Dugu Yana was also cultivating and making progress. She followed Yu Moyan's every step. As the two's cultivation improved, the aura on Dugu Yanner's body also became sharper little by little. The original gentleness had become something that only appeared in front of Yu Moyan. At least in the eyes of outsiders, the original obedient, cute, docile, and kind girl had completely transformed into a sharp weapon. And it was still changing, becoming more and more ferocious, sharper, and more arrogant. It was difficult to compete with her. The reason why Dugu Yenner changed like this was because she was the first person to sense Yu Moyan's change. She didn't choose to stop Yu Moyan's change, and she didn't even say a word. Instead, she immediately followed a change. After experiencing the white-headed mountain, Dugu Yenner deeply understood that in the current chaotic world, life and death were only in an instant. If you didn't kill, you would be killed. Murderous aura and evil aura, in the current world, might not be a bad thing. Since you cultivate this cultivation method, you might become a devil in the future. Then, let me cultivate this cultivation method with you. If you become a sage, I will accompany you to defend the world. If you become a devil, I will accompany you to wreak havoc in the world. On the other side, Li Zhongming hugged the bell as he woke up. He could feel that his great dream divine technique had once again improved by a level in his previous dream. However, the process was still as muddled as before. Smacking his lips, he didn't dare to slack off and continued to cultivate. Soon, he entered a state of forgetfulness and then fell asleep again. Rumble! A huge mountain suddenly collapsed, and smoke and dust filled the sky. After the dust settled down and everything calmed down, Pai Bao walked out of a broken hole, as if he didn't exist on a normal day. His face was still plain and ordinary. At this moment, he was strolling in the forest, as if his whole body had integrated with the surrounding trees. No one would notice that there was actually a living person walking around here. Also, he didn't have a sword in his hand. The sword had been broken and broken. He couldn't take it anymore. At this moment in his hand, in his palm, was a bow. It looked very simple and unadorned. It was unknown what material it was made of, and it didn't have a bowstring. At first glance, it looked like a defective product. A bow without a bowstring. What kind of bow was it? But Pai Bao hugged this bow as if he was hugging a peerless treasure. He loved it so much that he refused to let it go. But other than this bow, he also missed someone. He walked out of the cave, flew to the peak of the mountain, identified the direction, and flew all the way to Fenghai. I haven't seen them for a long time. I really miss them. Puff puff puff. Wuxia's nimble cat sword was like a storm, shooting sword light in all directions. Once again, he broke out of the encirclement. More than 10 people who had besieged him previously had already turned into corpses. Blood splattered everywhere, and before they could fall from the sky, Zuo had already turned into a flash of lightning and rushed away. In the previous round of bitter battle, Zuo had used all of his strength, and all of his strength. He crossed 2 deep valleys in succession, and rushed into the continuous forest on the other side like a meteor. Zuo's forehead was full of sweat. After a series of pursuit and ambushes, he finally broke through to the position where he was about to reach the Red Sun Mountain range. Zuo displayed unprecedented caution. Along the way, he had already killed countless enemies. However, whenever there was a slight urgency, Zuo actually did not collect the spatial rings. As for the need to waste a lot of time talking to obtain the luck points, Zuo did not even think about it. That was too extravagant. Now was the time to focus on survival. It was not the time to think about other things. Where there is life, there is hope. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. He tried his best to control the situation. He did not allow any enemies to get close to him, nor did he give the enemies a chance to form an encirclement. Although he was constantly attacked, Zuo was always calm. He left as soon as he came in contact with them. When he could escape immediately, even if there was a chance to kill all of the pursuers, he would not linger in the battle. Zuo felt that his fighting experience and comprehension of life had improved by more than 1 level after this chase. In fact, the latter was even better than the former. What is greed? I am very open-minded now. What is money? What is luck points? I don't care about them. Cough. What spatial rings? They are just worldly possessions. If I throw them away, I don't care about them at all. Cough. My life is the most important thing. Yes. But so many good things have been lost. 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 My heart. Ha ha ha, what's the big deal about that? I don't care about them. Chapter 986. However, this was the interior of the Umno Alliance. Zuo was neither as knowledgeable as Li Chenglong, nor as familiar with geography as Fang Yinhua. At this moment he was desperate to escape and gradually panicked. Although Xiaolong was scouting, this was the first time Xiaolong had seen such tropical vegetation. He did not understand the danger involved. The vegetation in front of him was only the beginning of this mountain range. It was bright and colorful, and seemed a little abnormal. However, there was no other way to go. He could only choose to cross it. After all, this was the best way and direction to save the most distance. Who cares? This place is really a good place. Let's not talk about other things. Just the fact that it's easy to hide is the biggest advantage. I can also take a breather. Zuo rushed in without any hesitation due to his excitement. The Red Sun Mountain Range had always been the hottest place in the 3 continents. It was also known as the Flaming Mountain. The temperature in the core area was extremely high. Flames rose, and almost no plants could survive. In the surrounding area, the vegetation was lush and dense to an unbelievable extent. Any random wild grass could grow to a height of more than 10 meters. Trees that required a few people to wrap their arms around could also be seen everywhere. In such a vast area, there were countless natural treasures and many poisonous insects and ferocious beasts. The hot climate all year round bred too many unknown poisonous creatures and gave birth to too many dangerous places. At first glance, there were some places that did not seem dangerous. However, once adventurers entered, there would be less than 1 in 100 who would survive. The Red Sun Mountain Range was famous for its hot climate all year round. It was also a paradise for adventurers in the Umno Alliance. A place of death. Every year, every day, countless adventurers would silently lose their lives in this place, and countless adventurers would make a fortune out of this place. This was because everywhere one looked, there were opportunities to make a fortune. The opportunity to make a fortune mentioned here was not only referring to the extremely difficult to obtain heavenly materials and earthly treasures that warriors needed, but also to the many trees that could be seen everywhere after going deep into this place. After being transported out, they would be polished into beads, which was a kind of literary toy that ordinary people in the Wizard Alliance continent liked the most. After playing with the beads for a period of time, they would show the color of the starry sky. Playing with them in one's hand was like playing with the whole universe. As the beads rotated, the stars shone brightly, deep and mysterious. Even at night, when one could not see his fingers, there were still stars blinking constantly. It was really full of the texture of the starry sky. Moreover, as one played with them for a long time, it would emit a strange fragrance. The older the tree was, the more valuable it was. Because of this characteristic, it was called the wood of the starry sky. Even martial artists liked to play with this kind of tree, but when it came to cutting down this tree, even a divine cloud warrior would have to risk his life. It was all because there were unimaginable dangers under the tree, and under the ground. Under a random withered leaf, there could be a large number of poisonous insects. The poisonous insects that were used to staying near the wood of the starry sky had the characteristic of ignoring any spiritual energy defense. Once they bit into the flesh, even a divine cloud warrior might not be able to survive for more than half an hour. It was extremely difficult to treat them. However, the Red Sun Mountain Range had always been the hobby of the Fire Witch and the Poison Witch. They would wander here from time to time. The reason why they only came here often was that the two great witches did not dare to live here for a long time. The degree of danger could be imagined. After experiencing countless battles, Swordsmanship finally couldn't avoid getting close to this area. Being chased to the point where he couldn't find a place to hide, he didn't even think about it, and just rushed in. However, he did not know that this was the Umno Alliance's forbidden area. Seeing Swordsmanship rush into the colorful forest, many of the Umno Alliance warriors who were chasing him were greedy and followed him in. However, there were more people who all stopped at the same time. They were at death's door. Did they really want to risk their lives to try? As for the Wizard Alliance's life-forbidden zone, everyone who was knowledgeable and considerate had always been fearful of it. If they died in the battle with Swordsmanship, at least they could be regarded as heroes. They sacrificed their lives for the future of the Umno Alliance. They would be treated well, and it would be good for their descendants and families. If they caught or killed Swordsmanship with their own hands, it would be a great achievement. However, if they died inexplicably in the mouth of poisonous insects, they would not be treated like this. Although most of the warriors of the Umno Alliance had strong physical bodies, and many of them did not think too much about it, they were not afraid of death. They were even more fearless in the face of foreign enemies. However, they were not willing to die in such a worthless way. They were all high-level cultivators. Which one of them was able to cultivate to the level they were at today for nothing? Therefore, many warriors who had come spontaneously either chose to go back, or take a detour to the other side of the Red Sun Mountain Range to lie in ambush. If they went back now, although they would not gain anything, at least they would be able to retreat safely. Those who went to the other side were full of hope. If Swordsmanship was really lucky and broke through this forbidden area, They might be able to take advantage of him. In the minds of these people, this forbidden area and the Death Mountain Range were much more terrifying than Swishaoduo. Even if Swishaoduo died in there, they would just treat it as a trip. Even if they gained more experience, there would be no harm in it. Compared to these warriors who cherished their lives more, there were still many people who decided to go in after some consideration. What if Swishaoduo was poisoned in there and cut off his head and turned it into a merit? They had to take advantage of this situation. Riches and honor were found in danger. Opportunities and risks coexisted. How could this be just a saying? In addition to the scattered warriors, the first group of 300 people who had the burning order rushed in without hesitation. Then, there was another group of people who carefully entered the Red Sun Mountain Range after carrying many self-defense items. In the time it took to have a meal, 50 to 60,000 people had rushed in from all directions. Since this place was called the Forbidden Area and the Death Mountain Range, this was the first time so many people had rushed in for hundreds of thousands of years. Moreover, the number of people entering was increasing rapidly. Countless faint ripples in the Red Sun Mountain Range gradually spread out. Countless tiny poisonous insects that were hibernating were disturbed and began to retreat into the depths of the forest. Although the poisonous insects in the Red Sun Mountain Range were extremely poisonous, because of their small size, they would definitely die if they were bitten. Now that there was such a commotion, the natural instinct of living creatures to seek luck and avoid calamity reacted, and found a more secluded place to rest. It was probably because of this that the large number of people who had rushed in from the Umno Alliance was bitten by the poisonous insects at the first moment. At this moment, Swishaoduo was rushing in from the heat waves rising from his body. Just as he entered the boundary of the Red Sun Mountain Range, he realized that something was wrong. He rushed to the side of a small river that looked very clear. Just as he was about to wash his face and hands to relieve his tiredness, he was shocked to find that the bottom of this clear river was covered with eerie white bones. Moreover, these bones were showing signs of slowly dissolving bit by bit. Although the process was slow, it could be seen with the naked eye. Swishaoduo immediately felt his hair stand on end, and his heart trembled with fear. When he carefully observed the clear river in front of him, he was shocked to find that this small river was filled with tiny insects that were no different from the water. If Swishaoduo had not been certain that there was something wrong with this small river, he would not have noticed it at all. Rustling sounds could be heard all around. It was the sound of the poisonous insects that had been disturbed and had begun to flee in panic. With a puff, a python that was as thick as a bucket, with hard scales all over its body and a single red horn on its head, jumped straight into the water. It seemed that it intended to swim to the other side of the river, but the moment it jumped into the river, there was a miserable howl. Without warning, the python began to roll violently. Swishaoduo clearly saw that at that moment. The moment the python jumped into the river. No, even when the python's body was still in midair, countless silk threads began to rush out of the water and wrapped around the python's body like water vapor. When the python really entered the water, the scales on its body no longer had the ability to protect its body. Its flesh began to fall off, and the small river was instantly dyed red. However, another tiny thing surged over. In less than 5 breaths of time, not only did the python disappear, even the surface of the river that was dyed red with blood swiftly regained its clarity. The surface of the river gradually regained its tranquility, and only a white skeleton lay at the bottom of the river. It was still slowly decomposing, and the last trace of it was gradually disappearing. Swishaoduo, who witnessed this scene with his own eyes, felt his scalp go numb, and his eyes almost popped out. What kind of poisonous insects were in there? How could it be so strange? A python that weighed more than 1,000 kilograms was swallowed up in such a short period of time, including its skin, flesh, and even blood? Swishaoduo was still in shock. Suddenly, he felt some movement under his feet, as if there was something in the soil. When he lifted his feet to take a look, he was shocked again. He saw 2 all-like ant-like things drilling out of the ground where he was standing just now. At this time, half of their bodies were already exposed. Looking at his boots made of animal skin, there were actually 7 or 8 holes drilled out of them. What the hell? Shuoxiaoduo was even more shocked. He looked at the ground again and saw that there were some withered leaves near where he was standing just now. He activated his true qi and flipped them in the air. He saw with his own eyes that the layer of leaves on the ground was suddenly covered with thousands of flying insects. Shuoxiaoduo didn't dare to stay any longer, nor did he care about exposing himself. He operated the flaming sun scripture with all his might, and an extremely hot wave surged, instantly burning these disgusting little things to ashes. In an instant, the air was filled with a burnt smell. It's too dangerous. This is just the beginning. What kind of broken place is this? Shuoxiaoduo gritted his teeth. He wanted to turn around and leave, but he reckoned that he would run into the army that was hunting him. He would definitely be surrounded and killed. Although this place was dangerous, it didn't mean that there was no way to deal with it. Shuoxiaoduo made up his mind and operated the flaming sun scripture. He wrapped his entire body and walked all the way into the forest. Everywhere it passed, there was a burnt smell. Originally, there was nothing in the air, but wherever the blazing sun divine art passed, the smell of charred meat would rise up. Look over there, Shuoxiaoduo is over there. An excited shout came from behind. Before the voice had died away, there were already people rushing over from all directions. From the way these people rushed over, it was obvious that they were very experienced in entering this forest. Everywhere they passed, their feet didn't touch the ground. They waved the weapons in their hands as if they were flying. All the branches and leaves in front of them had to be cleared before they could move forward. It was obvious that they were doing this to deal with the insects at the bottom of the leaves. There were also people who were constantly sprinkling some kind of pungent powder. Under the infusion of their yuan power, they sprinkled it over a radius of hundreds of kilometers. They continued to sprinkle it over and over again. At this time, there was a constant flow of dense mist in the air. It seemed that there were things that couldn't stand the smell and flew away. However, the individual was too thin, and there were too many of them, forming a smoke-like appearance. Shuoxiaoduo actually didn't go far. He was secretly observing what these people were doing. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy could you win 100 battles. As someone who had entered this kind of jungle for the first time, he knew better than anyone that he was in the dark here, and had no experience at all. He had to learn seriously. These people's knowledge and experience of this place were what he urgently needed at the moment. He couldn't keep using the burning sun divine art to burn all the way. That would only exhaust himself to death. Even if he had the continuous supply of the heavenly stone, it wouldn't be enough. The most important thing was that if he used the burning sun divine art for a long time, he wouldn't be able to hide his whereabouts. Just imagine how dazzling and eye-catching would Shuoxiaoduo be when he was wrapped in heat waves and flames all the time. Shuoxiaoduo, die! A long roar shook the sky. The 3 people above him ignored all the poisonous insects and rushed down unscrupulously. About 10 meters in front of Shuoxiaoduo, they exploded with a loud bang. An unprecedentedly huge wave of air suddenly attacked. Crazy! Shuoxiaoduo cursed loudly. His whole body, which was floating in the air, was completely unable to stabilize. He was pushed back a few hundred meters by the sudden wave of air. There was no room for resistance. Shuoxiaoduo's body broke countless trees as he retreated. Countless hidden poisonous insects suddenly fluttered like catkins in spring. They rushed up crazily and covered a radius of 10,000 meters. Hundreds of millions of poisonous insects were attracted by the fresh flesh and blood. They rushed towards Shuoxiaoduo and madly bit him. Chapter 987. Fortunately, Shuoxiaoduo was still using the flaming sun divine skill to protect himself from being bitten by the venomous insects. Many of the venomous insects here knew that they would be incinerated if they got close, but they still rushed over to bite him. Even the heat wave of the flaming sun scripture had to bite desperately before it was incinerated. This made Shuoxiaoduo's hair stand on end. In the process of being forced back, Shuoxiaoduo was shocked to find that many of the venomous insects here had the characteristic of ignoring spiritual defense. If not for the fire attribute of the flaming sun divine skill, which could incinerate the venomous insects indiscriminately, he would have died in the process of retreating. But even if the fire attribute of the flaming sun divine skill was weak, it was still consumed in the process of being engulfed. Seeing this, Swordsmanship did not dare to be careless. He increased the output of the flaming sun divine skill. He never thought that someone would use such an extreme method to deal with him. They would rather sacrifice their lives and self-destruct in vain. Moreover, they would not cause any effective harm to him. But they still used this method to force him into the area where a large number of venomous insects were hibernating. However, this method had an immediate effect on him. Swordsmanship had a terrible headache. Fortunately, the disadvantage of this method was also revealed. This method was an indiscriminate attack in a large area. The venomous insects did not only attack Swordsmanship, besides affecting the person directly involved, Swordsmanship, it also affected many others. In an instant, crazy curses were heard from all directions. There was also a series of screams one after another. They had been attacked by the venomous insects because of the sudden change. But all of this did not matter to the person with the burning body order. As long as Swordsmanship could die, it did not matter if he was bitten to death by the venomous insects. It did not matter if more people were to die with him. Swordsmanship's combat power is too strong. We can't kill him. If we can't get close to him, we will be killed by Swordsmanship. So we might as well self-destruct from a distance. We used the craziest wave of vitality to injure Swordsmanship and send him flying. We even used this method to incite all the venomous insects. No matter which one it is, if Swordsmanship is bitten to death, our explosion will not be in vain. There were many venomous insects that were unique to the Flaming Sun mountain range. Their bodies were almost transparent and invisible to the naked eye. If one was not careful, they could enter the nose along with breathing. Once they entered the brain, there was no chance of survival. As the poisonous insects covered the sky and covered the earth, many Jianghu people ran for their lives and scattered in all directions. However, the current craziness was only the beginning. The burning body order masters. There were another 20 people who rushed in without a care for their own safety. As long as they saw Swordsmanship's shadow in the depths of the forest, they would immediately self-detonate without a second word. In less than 100 breaths of the Flaming Sun sect, buzz buzz buzz, there was a strange vibration sound. It was the sound of too many venomous insects flapping their wings at the same time. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, all the venomous insects on the trees, in the water, in the air underground, were stimulated by this series of movements. Intentionally or unintentionally, they formed a dense web of venomous insects that connected the sky to the earth. This kind of mutual destruction attack was undoubtedly extremely vicious, but it was extremely effective against Swordsmanship. Although they were still far away, and only the aftermath of the self-destruction was affected, the power was still enormous. It still shook Swordsmanship's chi and blood. What was worse was that the air was filled with tiny venomous insects. Swordsmanship did not even dare to breathe directly. If he breathed, he might inhale a lot of venomous insects. All he could do was hold his breath and endure it with all his might. The Flaming Sun divine art continued to operate. Swordsmanship held 2 pieces of top-grade astral souls, jade at all times to replenish his energy supply. He was still reluctant to use the heaven-mending stone. That was a real life-saving item. He could not use it like this. Even this was not enough. When he could not hold on any longer, Swordsmanship had to enter the space of the Tower of Annihilation. He took a few breaths and drank a few mouthfuls of spiritual water. Then he came out immediately. He did not dare to delay for too long. Even though the difference in the flow of time between the Tower of Emptiness and the outside world was not small, his disappearance was already a flaw. If he continued for a little longer, he was bound to be targeted by someone with ill intentions. Once the people under the Burning Order nearby gathered here, how could he deal with these people under the Burning Order, who were in the state of ignited explosives when he appeared again? Against them, there was no need to talk about fighting. What was there to fight? Just self-destruct. During this time, Swordsmanship entered the Tower of Annihilation twice to take a breather. The first time he came out, there was only one person outside. Swordsmanship wanted to try to kill the other person before he self-destructed. Reality proved that he thought too much. The moment the other person saw him, he self-destructed. Swordsmanship fled madly into the depths of the forest. When he came out of the Tower of Annihilation for the second time, there were 3 people under the burning order gathered nearby. The moment Swordsmanship appeared, they all self-destructed. Swordsmanship was shaken to the point that his chi and blood were surging. His vision was blurred. His condition was worse than before he entered the Tower of Annihilation. However, he did not dare to stop. He continued to run, and did not dare to enter the Tower of Annihilation again. Swordsmanship faintly had a thought in his mind. The crisis of death that he was facing was getting closer and closer to him, until he was completely annihilated. After experiencing it personally, he finally understood the horror of such extreme tactics. Even if you had invincible combat strength, when faced with such extreme tactics, you would not be able to fight head-on, wait for you to draw your sword, use your hammer, or use your poison. As long as I see you, I will self-destruct. No matter how invincible or awesome you are, it is all useless against me, because I am already destined to be a dead man. The meaning of life is to self-destruct at the last moment. There is no other way. All the invincible tactics were just to turn the opponent into a dead man. But the opponent had already considered himself a dead man. What could he do? The self-destruct tactic, that could only be used in desperate situations, was directly used as a common tactic. How could he fight this? He did not even have a chance to fight. No wonder so many geniuses are killed as long as they are targeted by the burning order. Very few are lucky. Swordsmanship felt chills all over his body as he ran. He was really terrified. If this continued, he would be played to death by such tactics sooner or later. He would be completely annihilated. Especially in this jungle environment, he did not even dare to get hurt. As long as there was a small wound on his body, it would attract tens of billions of poisonous insects. Moreover, they were the kind of treacherous poisonous insects that could not be seen. I'm asking you, are you scared? There were many poisonous insects that were unique to the Red Sun Mountain Range. The color of their bodies was almost transparent. They were almost invisible to the naked eye when placed in the air. If one was not careful, they could enter the nasal cavity along with one's breath. Once they entered the brain, there was no way to save them. This kind of desperado, no. This kind of heroic warrior, there are too many of them. Swordsmanship's heart was filled with fear. The burning order is so scary. There were not just 1 or 2 desperados like this, but thousands, tens of thousands, and this number was only a small part of them. The fundamental reason for their existence was not to build a combat army formed entirely by the peak of the returning mysterious realm, but to create a human-shaped bomb at the peak of the returning mysterious realm. They were already old and close to the end of their lives. Their bodily functions had deteriorated greatly, compared to the real peak of the returning mysterious realm. Their combat strength was just SOSO without self-explosion. But when it came to disregarding life and death, they were truly disregarding life and death. The meaning of their existence was to use their lives, and that shocking explosion to realize their ultimate value. And they saw it as the highest glory. There was a rustling sound. With a sharp whistling sound, a figure shot out from the dense forest on the left. In an instant, it was in front of Swordsmanship. Without saying a word, it slashed down with a saber. The momentum was astonishing, and the saber chi was biting cold. Its power was even greater than that of the previous people under the burning order. Clang! The sword collided with the saber, and there was a crisp sound. Swordsmanship was not surprised. Instead, he was happy and even a little excited. Finally, there was someone who was willing to fight head-on, and no longer those desperados who used self-explosion to attack. At this moment, Swordsmanship even felt a little flattered. Oh my God, there was someone who was willing to fight. And no longer those firecrackers. The person who came was really powerful. He was only at the peak of the returning mysterious realm, But with the combat strength of this peak, even Zhou Xiaoduo felt that this person was not ordinary and would be difficult to deal with. In terms of combat strength, he was at least at the level of Yi Changqing, or maybe even a level higher than Yi Changqing. At least, if Zhou Xiaoduo only used his sword, he would not be able to kill him in an instant. Well, at this stage, if Zhou Xiaoduo did not kill a peak of the returning mysterious realm expert in an instant, then he was really powerful. He was comparable to the likes of Yi Changqing, or even better. At the end of the collision, after one move, the person who came was instantly suppressed by Zhou Xiaoduo. The drizzle sword attacked densely, and the person used the splashing wind saber technique to defend himself. However, he still felt a chill all over his body. The tip of the sword was about to pierce his chest and throat at any time, and the tip of the sword could cut off his 6 sons at any time. Another whistling sound was heard, and another 6 people rushed out with their sabers and swords in their hands. Sword light and saber chi spread out in all directions. Facing these 7 people, Zhou Xiaoduo had his own plans. The situation was under control, and he even had the time to pay attention to the mist and powder scattered in the air when the 7 people appeared. He looked at what kind of bottle it was, what was written on the bottle, and the characteristics of the bottle. After thinking for a while, and confirming that he had remembered everything clearly, he was going to use all his strength to end this battle. This was Zhou Xiaoduo's main purpose. The hidden weapon sword technique attacked powerfully. The jade gourd, the hexagram, and the soaring dense sword light were infinitely flamboyant. However, just as Zhou Xiaoduo was about to unleash his full potential, intending to end this battle, the 7 people on the other side suddenly laughed in unison. As if they had been prepared for this, they hugged each other in the nick of time, and with a whoosh, they started to spin rapidly. A crazy momentum suddenly erupted. A trap. This was actually a trap. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.